show.
Yeah, you like that? This way no one will be confused.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Howdy.
There we go. We are here, and it is exactly 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Look at that.
Yeah, I'm impressed. How's everybody?
It'll never happen again. Good. How are you?
Just fine, thanks. Got home from my trip yesterday, and it's been a nice, easy, relaxing day for me. Doing a lot of show prep and stuff. It probably won't show, but trust me, I did. And how's everybody out there in the chat room? Oh, I should probably pull up the chat room. What do you think?
They've been waiting patiently.
Have they?
Or impatiently.
Hello, everyone.
So, what have we got this week?
Ooh, Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
And Dana's not even here.
Nice.
Malted New England Ale.
Tea
Is
party.
it any good?
I don't know. I'm just about to crack it.
Okay.
I'll tell you in a minute.
I have like my diet IPA here. That's what I feel like.
Go.
Oh, you need to do something better than that weak opening that you just did. Let me see if I can find.
Oh, it's flavoursome. I'm not too sure whether it's a flavour for me, but it's got plenty of.
It's not fruity.
It's a bit too fruity. Tastes a bit like a fruity version of the Boston Harbor, I guess.
After they threw all the tea into it.
I'm not sure. I've never tasted the Boston Harbor, actually.
Yeah, I'd try not to, probably. I don't know.
Tasting notes. God, I've got to hold it distance away now. Big, juicy, tropical notes. Oh, God, I picked up the wrong one. Lime and citrus.
It sounds wonderful.
Don't let that influence
delicate
how you
sweet.
What you really taste.
Don't candy coat it, mate.
Hello, Nev. Hello, Anthony Smith. Hello, APG Show. Oh, that's us. Lane Street. Powell Winierski. Powell Winierski. I know that he's told us how to pronounce that before, and
probably
messed it up.
Oh, well, you need to tell me at least 50 times before I can get even close.
Yeah. Simon Vett. Ken Hayes. Uber Frank. Let's see. Who else?
I'll remember how to pronounce your name. I just won't remember what your name is when I'm confronted with you face to face.
Yeah. I know you.
I've met you somewhere. You have a name, I'm sure, which you'll remind me of.
I met a guy in the airport just yesterday at the very end of my trip, and I recognized his name, but I didn't recognize him because I've never met him before. Rob. And there he is.
Rob Bazanko.
Rob Bazanko.
All right.
Hey, man.
Quick hello.
See if I spelled your name right.
Tom Indelicate.
I hope your flight was good, Rob, back home to Calgary. Yay, I remembered. All right. Tom Indelicate. Okay.
Greg.
Indelicate.
Indelicate.
There's a couple of extra L's in there.
Hey, you know what we should do?
What's that?
Start our recorders. Because that will
I haven't done that in
I know. So
ages.
That's why I'm thinking I should have told you to do that before we even push the go live button, because sometimes it'll take some time to get it all.
I'm sure it's going to need to update.
How come you guys always need updates? I never seem to need to update mine.
I don't know.
It just goes. And it's going.
What's the name of the recording program?
Here we go.
Hold on, I can't find the program.
It's the one that looks like a bottle of pills.
Yeah, I know. It disappeared off of my.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, Robert. I'm glad you didn't miss your flight.
We're 410 this week, aren't we? Isn't there a Cessna 410?
Yep.
Oh, it's the
I think.
30th.
Is that one of the twins stuff?
Mm-hmm.
The 410?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of the right one. I don't know. Right now, my brain is processing, trying to figure out where my recorder. What's the name of the program?
It's called Audio Hijack.
Thank you.
And I'm going to see. It's always good to have Nick on the show.
We're going. I'm going.
Your mind is gone.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's see if I can share this so you can see where Dana's residing at the moment. Let's see, application window. There we go. Share. There he is. That's why Dana
I feel
is
so
not...
bad for him right now.
I know, I do.
To not have to be
Me
here.
too. Dana...
That looks awful. Where is he?
Curacao
Where's that?
in the Caribbean.
Oh, I don't like the Caribbean.
A new version of Audio Hijack is ready to install.
Why don't you install it?
I'm not going to. I
You're not
already hit
going to?
record.
Okay.
Look,
Let's
I
see.
did put my board together though.
Did you? I didn't. I never do. Oh, I'm trying to get rid of that. Here we go. Boom. See, I know you can't hear my computer right now, but the fan is going because I did the share screen thing. All right. APG 410 in 3, 2, 1.
Nick, where'd you go?
My camera just decided to. It looks like your camera was unplugged.
Oh, why did you unplug your camera?
Unplug your camera?
I don't
Why
remember
would you do
doing that.
That was kind of stupid.
Excuse.
Poor timing.
Well,
Looks like you plugged it back in.
Well, apparently I have. Oh, that was clever, wasn't it?
Wow. How'd you do that?
I don't know.
It's US fun with USB.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, you know what? I do. I lied. I do have one beer left in my
ouch.
fridge.
Stop
wow.
it.
And
Oh,
I should probably grab it because people say that I'm more mellow when I've had a beer.
Marshmallow.
Hang on. It's from Oshkosh.
Oh, right. Okay. I just did all my settings for this down thing, and I've got to do them all over again.
Nope.
Oh, yes, exactly right. Yeah,
we were wrong. It's
Good Lord, is he being robbed?
yes.
I'm back. Ooh.
Hey, so Nick,
Yes, sir.
I got some of these for you.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
So how do I send them to you so that you don't have to pay some exorbitant VAT?
You put them in a package and you give it a very low value.
Okay.
It's worth nothing. Nothing.
Like our friendship.
Exactly right. I mean, you put them in a tiny little package and just say Class A drugs. That's the usual way to avoid that.
Class A drugs?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. No, I don't think I should do that. Illegal narcotics.
Yeah, that's the one.
$5.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to probably get together later this year. Just keep them in
hang
your
on to
pocket.
it?
Yeah.
All right. This is the.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Is it? What day is today? Thursday. I missed this week's pub quiz. Next week.
Damn.
This is
Yes,
the last one of these Rock Your Wings from the 50th anniversary of Oshkosh German style amber. I do like amber. Not the beer.
So one of our listeners is coming over on the weekend.
Oh yeah, somebody,
Dave Gooch.
Yeah, he was asking me.
737 driver.
Yeah, he is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna have time to get them to him. But
where is he? Where does he live?
Well, he flies out of the Southwest in the 737.
Well, so
I don't know where
he probably doesn't live there though. Yeah.
No.
Well, Dave, if you're listening, contact me, or I know how to contact him because he's a new Coffee Fund cadre member.
Oh,
Coffee
right,
Bar
excellent.
Fund, whatever you want to call it.
We like the pilots that fly out of the Southwest.
Yes.
The only reason I keep getting hooked
heart.
up with Coffee Bar is that when I joined the Air Force, I was the Coffee Bar officer. We called it the Coffee Bar. So that's the only reason I call it the Coffee Bar, because I can't say Coffee Fund. I just did say it, actually, didn't I? That was clever,
you just we've just made a breakthrough. A breakthrough.
Hey, so just to go back a little bit, there is a Cessna 401, 402, 411 maybe not a 410.
But no 410?
Don't think so. I
Dang
think that's
it.
a 310. I was like, I don't know. There's too many
Sure, there was a Cessna
ones that
410.
start with 400 something. I don't know. I might still be wrong. So
No.
someone will write in and let us know. Someone who
Images
owns
for
one of those
Cessna
aircraft.
410. There are thousands of them.
Yeah, but click on it and see what it actually says.
Oh, excuse me.
I had requested to put
Golden
the
Eagle.
globe back on Australia. So whoever was asking about that, there you go. Greg.
Oh, they're all 411s. Yes, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the 410 series. It's the 410-1.
Yes, that.
That's the one.
How do I adjust my phone so it doesn't go to sleep?
So you go to
You
settings.
bash it up and down on your desk a few
I'm
times.
I'm in settings.
And then
Which
display.
one? Display. Okay, thank you.
Then brightness. And
I
then
see
go to auto lock and never.
Wait a minute. Brightness.
Yep, go
I
down,
see
down,
auto
down.
lock. Okay.
auto lock.
Oh, you go. Okay. Gotcha. Never. Thank you.
You know what's going to happen? You'll be trying to go to bed tonight and you'll be going, how do I turn this bloody screen off?
I've done it before. It's just that I figured somebody would be able to tell me how to get it.
Steph!
We're
We're
ignoring Lane specifically. I just want him to know. Anyway.
Host ignoring the chat. Okay, what are we supposed to be paying attention to?
I don't know. What's happened?
Yes,
I don't
Fabian,
know.
we just saw a photo he sent to Jeff. Dana still on the cruise. Just no return address. Gustav, Willison, haha. Okay, did we really miss anything?
No.
That's the question.
And none of them are missing anything by listening to us right now either.
So I think we should just go back to ignoring the chat room.
I agree. And
All right.
perhaps, I don't know, I'm ready to start the show whenever you are.
I think we should do that. Let me make sure
I'm
that
up for
the
that.
sound is set up properly. And let me go to the intro segues and play.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
Is that all right?
Sounds good to me.
All right. And I have my script right there. All right. Here we go. Gonna tap that. And Liz, we're good.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 410.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 30th of January, 2020.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, 3 people die when a C-130 crashes while fighting bushfires in Australia. A Florida man under arrest for temporarily blinding a pilot with a laser. More news, your feedback, and another edition of Plane Tales. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked position. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 410 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger, for our wonderful intros. He is an Emmy Award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins. And you, folks, are watching and listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about aviation news and answer your feedback. And here with me this week from her lakeside home in the Carolinas, Dr. Skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot. It's Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It is great to be here for the start of a show for once in the past few weeks. So looking forward to, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, so looking forward to all of that.
Me too. And so nice to have you with us from the very beginning. And also with us from his studio in the English countryside. A professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, and retired captain for an international airline based in London. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Hi, Steph. Great to see you. Looking forward to a super show, as always. And yeah, it's a bit late. I'm lucky if I make the end.
It's what?
It's a bit late. Gonna be a bit late.
Okay. Well, you know what that means then? We should probably get on with the show so we don't keep you up too late.
You're a gent.
Stand by for news.
Wait a minute. Me no like that.
No.
No, did you hear it?
What did you do?
Skip?
No.
Yeah.
I did.
Did you remember to wind the gramophone?
Yeah, hang on.
Crank it up.
Yeah. Make sure I cranked it up.
It's
Very
a
convincing
gramophone,
sound
not a
effects.
Model T Ford.
All right, shut up. Here we go. Fingers crossed.
Stand by for news.
All right, we start off with the first item in the news folder. You know, having perused the news folder, I'm sure you'll agree that it has not been a good week for positive aviation news stories.
No, not one of those weeks at all.
No. So let's start with this one. We're all aware of the bushfires, almost out of control. I guess they're under control now in Australia. And a lot of folks are fighting these fires, and that includes on the ground and in the air. And tragedy occurred last week when a C-130 crashed in what is it called? The Snowy Mountains or something like that in New South Wales.
Snowy Monaro area?
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
And the C-130 was operated by Coulson in Canada. And they put out a news media release. While working in the Snowy Monaro area in southern New South Wales, Australia, contact was lost with one of our large air tankers, a Lockheed C-130, registration November 134 Charlie Golf. The aircraft had departed Richmond, New South Wales with a load of retardant. Oh, I've been there actually. It's a kind of a Royal Australian Air Force Base, I believe.
Yeah, it's not far from the Snowies to the
And-
west of Sydney.
Not far from Sydney either, yeah. Yeah, when I was
Point
in
of
the air.
order. Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Sue. Oh,
Yeah.
Coulson, I think, is in the U.S., isn't it?
Yes.
Oregon?
No.
No?
Well, it does say Portland, Oregon, doesn't it? I thought for
Mhm.
some reason I thought it was Canadian.
I
Mhm.
think they have a division in Canada, and I have a feeling this aircraft came from that division.
Oh, maybe that's why I
Okay.
thought that. Okay.
Carry
So let's just say North America.
Mhm.
The accident is reported to be extensive, and we are deeply saddened to confirm there were 3 fatalities. The accident response team has been activated as well as local emergency services. Coulson Aviation will be sending a team to the site to assist in emergency operations. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the 3 crew members on board. Sincerely, the Coulson family. By the way, several of our community members sent us various news articles regarding this tragedy. And so we do appreciate that, folks. Let's see. The one at the top here is actually photos and a little bit of information about the 3 crew members. Let's see. From left to right, we have First Officer Paul Clyde Hudson. And Hudson was a decorated Marine with 20 years of service who also flew C-130s for the Marine Corps. He retired as a lieutenant colonel before joining Coulson. He is survived by his wife. And then next is Captain Ian Macbeth. and he was a military pilot who also served with the Wyoming Air National Guard and was a current member, or is a current member, well, I guess was, of the Montana Air National Guard while working for Colson. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. And then the one on the right is Rick DeMorgan Jr., and he was an Air Force pilot who served as a flight engineer on C-130s for 18 years. He had more than 4,000 hours of flying time and nearly 2,000 of those in combat. He is survived by his 2 sons. So our thoughts and prayers for the families of the folks that perished in, I'd call it a heroic effort to try to, squash those fires. And yeah,
Sure.
sadly.
They were there putting themselves in harm's way to help others. So
Yeah.
very sad.
Okay, can I just set the record straight? I was
Yes.
wrong. BC, Canada, British Columbia in Canada is where they are based. Port Albany.
Okay.
And I'm guessing that they have a US branch, so I got it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
so it is Canadian then.
Yeah.
Canadian
Okay.
company with a U.S. division is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
figured.
I just saw this on one of these articles. Colson Aviation is a privately owned family company based in Canada.
Mhm.
That's why I thought that.
Yes. Sorry,
All
my
right.
fault. I was just reading the press release, which had
Right.
it's from their
Portland,
US
Oregon,
division.
it said.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, sad story. And you really haven't gotten any information at all. I think that the only thing I heard was that the airplane had crashed shortly after offloading its load of fire retardant, and not sure exactly. They said the visibility was horrible there because of the fire, so not sure exactly how they ended up crashing. But yeah, if we find out, we'll certainly talk about it on the show.
Mhm.
Anything else to say about that?
No, other than this was a very experienced crew. I mean, I've read all sorts of tributes to them as individuals, and particularly the flight engineer, it seems, who had an amazing career. But they were all very experienced guys. So I'd be very surprised if they had done anything wrong. But we know that this is a high risk occupation. And occasionally, when all the factors go against you, it's going to be real tough to survive a situation that might be beyond the aircraft's capability to get out of. So yeah, it's quite likely they just ended up in one of those places where it was inevitable. But and they're doing a fantastic job over there. There's hundreds of aircraft over there from all around the world now, doing a brilliant job trying to contain these fires. It's just a shame, it's a dreadful shame when we lose one.
Yeah.
Because of the timing of our show today, we have a couple of listeners from Australia in the chat room right now.
Mhm.
So this was sent in by Ray and Simon and Michelle. Simon's in the chat room right now, says he was on the fire line in Victoria when it happened. And Greg, also in the chat room on Facebook, says there was a service yesterday and the 3 crew were made honorary Australians and given awards. So
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah. Yes, thank you guys for sending us the news articles regarding this, and thanks for those of you who are in the chat room helping us out. We do appreciate that. Okay, see, we don't ignore you. Item B is a crash in Corona, California. 4 killed when a plane hits a berm, flips, catches fire at Corona Airport. Corona seems to be in the news quite a bit lately. The coronavirus.
different reason, yeah.
Corona beer. Anyway, 4 people were killed. We just read that. During takeoff, the single-engine Bonanza A36 failed to lift off. Instead, the plane crashed through a fence, hit a berm to the east of the airport, landed upside down, and caught fire. The Corona Police Department and Corona Fire Department responded to the crash as flight personnel worked to extinguish the resulting brush fire. Everybody ran over. Dorothy Vole, a witness, said, "We brought fire extinguishers." Despite their best efforts, nearby pilots were not able to save those on board. The 4 victims in the place did suffer extensive injuries, according to a spokesman for the Corona Fire Department. And they said that once 80 gallons of fuel ignited, there was no chance of survival for those on the plane. Anyway, let's see. Let's get to a little bit more information about the accident. According to investigators, the pilot was flying eastbound on the runway, attempting to take off downwind. Not a good idea. A departure some pilots said was not recommended at non-towered airports like Corona. Probably not recommended in many places.
In general, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't recommend downwind takeoffs.
A quote from Walt Snyder, a witness, said the wind's showing to go this direction, so normal departure is into the wind. Snyder, who was also a pilot, estimated that the aircraft might have been traveling 90 miles per hour when it crashed. He didn't pull back, and he was too fast on the runways, he said. Then he flipped, and then everybody was running, and it started on fire, and then it had 2 explosions, which probably were the fuel tanks. Both the FAA and NTSB have been called in to investigate. So, yeah, sad.
I don't know what more we can say other than, if
Right.
you've got a bit of wind, it's going to help. We'll try and,
Yeah.
It's not worth the 10 minutes it takes just taxi down to the into wind takeoff.
Right.
Exactly.
May not
Yeah.
be the cause. Of
Yeah.
course.
No.
It could
No.
have been some kind of a mechanical thing, or
Yep.
maybe even if they did take off into the wind, they still would have crashed. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or the pilot might have been incapacitated during the takeoff run. Lots
True.
of things.
Yep. That's all we have to go with, though. So hopefully we'll find out more as time goes on. Item C. Did you guys have a chance to look at the video in this news article?
I
Yes.
did not see the video.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, it's really good.
It is
All right.
very
Well,
good.
while you're talking, I'll watch the video.
Okay. A man was arrested Wednesday night. This is in Sarasota Bradenton Airport in Florida on the Gulf Coast. And this is from the HeraldTribune.com. A man was arrested Wednesday night after he temporarily blinded a pilot while pointing a laser at planes landing at Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office says. According to the Sheriff's Office, deputies responded to reports of a laser being pointed at planes. Ted Kohuth, airport police chief, said that a Cessna Skyhawk with 2 people on board practicing takeoffs and landings was struck multiple times. Its pilot said the laser hit him in the eyes, temporarily blinding him. The plane landed without incident. The pilot said his eyesight remained blurry after the incident. United Airbus A320 was also struck while landing. The plane landed without incident. It has a capacity of 150 passengers, but they didn't know exactly how many people were on the flight. While a sheriff's office helicopter searched for the suspect pointed the laser at the helicopter.
Big mistake.
Not
So
very
it's a
smart.
smart person. Yes.
Yeah.
Helicopter video provided by the sheriff's office also shows the man throws objects at the aircraft.
Yeah, he's trying to throw a brick at the
I saw
helicopter.
that.
Apparently, he has a really good arm, or at least he thinks he does.
Yeah.
Deputies found the suspect, Charles James Chapman Jr., 41, in the 8200 block of 25th Court East on a forklift. Chapman allegedly grabbed a hammer and made a striking motion toward them. Deputies used a taser to subdue him. They won. When Chapman was arrested, deputies found a laser in his pocket. He is charged with aggravated assault on an officer, pointing a laser at a pilot with injury, pointing a laser at a pilot without injury, and resisting arrest without violence. Kohuth said,
Well, you didn't
aiming-
have much alternative.
Yeah, well,
You've been tased.
Yeah, so folks listening, check out the show notes because you will be given a link there. You can watch the video, and some of it it's a lot of, what do you call that, infrared camera footage, and then it kind of switches back and forth between the infrared and the normal view, and you can clearly see this guy shining the laser at the helicopter, and clearly see the police officers coming in and swarming him.
Yes.
And
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, I hate the idea that he had tried to blind the helicopter pilot, the police helicopter pilot. But of course, if he hadn't, chances are he wouldn't have been caught, because those of us in the civvy world, when it happens to us, we can give a rough position. But unless the guy continues to do it and is easily visible to people on the ground, there's very little chance of them actually being captured in the act. But the fact that he carried on shining it at the the sheriff's office's helicopter, I just did it for him.
yeah, thank you for
Brilliant.
that.
I like Mike Kuiper's, he says, taser beats laser.
Yeah,
Sounds like
perfect.
a show title to me.
Good
Ooh.
one.
Mm.
We'll give it chat room award so
Yes.
far. All right. Thanks, Mike. Moving on to some more sad news. The Twin Tigers aerobatic team, and I didn't see them perform at Oshkosh, but apparently they were there. Did you catch that, either of you?
I think I actually did see part of that show.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they're based down here south of Atlanta.
Yes, in
Coweta
Georgia.
County. Yeah.
Mhm.
Twin Tigers aerobatic team pilot Mark Nowosilski.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, unfortunately.
Was killed Saturday when the small aircraft he was piloting crashed in Coweta County, Georgia. The crash also killed the son of his Twin Tigers teammate, Mark Sorensen. So that was his teammate, and his son's name is Nathan. The flight was not part of an airshow practice or performance. According to one news report, Mark had just purchased the Bushby Mustang II, a two-seat home-built aircraft similar to a Vans RV series. Mark was a graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and started flying aerobatics in 2006. Eventually became a member of the U.S. Limited Aerobatic Team. As part of the Twin Tigers team, he was awarded the 2019 Bill Barber Award for Showmanship this past July. The act featured two Yak 55s painted in distinctive tiger-striped schemes and a special smoke ring generator. For night shows, Mark flew his Yak with Tron-like LED strips, highlighting the wings and fuselage. Mark was also a Boeing 737 pilot for Southwest Airlines. Very sad.
Yeah, I think I remember them doing their show at Oshkosh, didn't I? Because there was
certainly had some
certainly
pictures of it.
Yeah, there's certainly some aircraft that were leaving these smoke rings and then going around and doing aerobatics through them, which looked very
I did
impressive.
see that too.
Yeah. So this is dreadful because he's obviously a very skilled pilot, incredibly skilled pilot. It's very sad to lose him, and doubly so the son of his mate Mark Sorensen. So just really tough.
Poor Mark. I mean, he lost his son and his what I'm assuming is his very good friend and partner in this team.
Yeah.
That's
So,
can't imagine. Okay. Again, prayers and thoughts for the families. Okay. Now, the big item in aviation that has been just consuming, at least here in the U.S., media, especially the sports media, because there was a very prominent, they call basketball icon aboard this helicopter, a Sikorsky S-76B, and they were leaving John Wayne, Orange County Airport and flying up to the Mamba Center, a sports center up in Thousand Oaks, and on the morning of Sunday, I believe this past Sunday, and the weather wasn't great. It was kind of foggy and low visibilities.
Yeah, it's kind of like marginal VFR in
Yes.
a lot of the area.
Right. Yeah, very marginal. And I guess this is kind of a normal thing for Kobe Bryant and his daughter and family to lease this helicopter to do this sort of thing. In addition to Kobe and his daughter, there were also, 7 others?
There were 7 others. There was 9 total on the helicopter.
One pilot and then 8 passengers. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the others who were on this terrible, tragic crash. But anyway, they encountered some poor weather as they approached Burbank and Van Nuys Airport, north of LA, and had to wait and hold for a bit to allow some IFR traffic into Burbank and some traffic to take off out of Van Nuys. And then they were allowed to continue. And apparently under special VFR clearance at this time, following major roadways, Interstate 5, I'm not sure if it was a U.S. or a California Highway 18, and then his plan was to pick up the 101, and then finally make that last little bit of the trip over to the facility in Thousand Oaks. And unfortunately, they're still not sure exactly what's happening, but I think a lot of people have made some pretty good guesses what happened to him. Some great videos out there, by the way. Again, I'll mention Juan Brown, his Blancalirio channel, does a very nice job of kind of explaining the differences between IFR and VFR and special VFR. Also, there is somebody who took some of the data from the radar the radar information, and then was able to make kind of like one of these flyby kind of videos on
I think
Google
using
Earth.
Google Earth, they took the KML data and put that in.
And that kind of gives you, I think, one of the best ideas about what possibly happened, and him trying to follow this road, but then eventually either the ceiling was coming down or the terrain was going up, or both, and ended up, they're surmising that he was caught up in the clouds and tried to transition from the special VFR to IFR, and then a lot of people are thinking that he just lost control of the airplane or the helicopter, and it crashed. Very, very sad story. But the reason why it's such a big deal, at least here in the U.S. and in the media, is because of Kobe Bryant, the star power of Kobe Bryant. But I just want to make sure on our show that we don't kind of gloss over the fact that there were several others on that helicopter that also crashed, and the families are really grieving for them as well. A baseball coach, his wife and daughter, Orange Coast College baseball coach John Altobelli, were on board and passed away. There was a lady named Christina Mauser, a coach and mother. She's a basketball coach at a K-8 private school in Orange County. And then finally, a mother and daughter duo, Sarah Chester and her daughter Peyton, were also passengers aboard the helicopter, according to a Facebook post by Todd Schmidt, a former principal at Harborview Elementary, which Peyton once attended. So, they're still investigating. The NTSB has been on this for several days now, and they're trying to kind of put the pieces together. And a lot of misinformation out there by the media, not quite understanding. We kind of understand that they're not going to, quite grasp what it means when somebody is contacting SoCal Approach and asking for flight following, and they said that you're too low for flight following.
Mm-hmm.
People thinking, well, that means they were too low to the ground. Well, no, they were too low to get the radar data to provide flight following. And flight following, of course, most of the people that listen to the show understand, is not somebody helping you navigate. It's somebody telling you about other traffic in the area.
Yeah, it's a second set of eyes, so that you
right
have warning about other traffic in the area.
So what do you all think about this?
Well, I'm probably least qualified, having not done a lot of VFR flying and not a lot of helicopter flying. So I'll leave it to you guys.
Well, I have not done any helicopter flying myself, although I was just listening to one of the podcasts I like to listen to. And by the way, we're on their 24-hour stream, the No Agenda podcast. Adam Curry is the main host of the show, and he is a helicopter, or I don't know if he's a current helicopter pilot, but he holds ratings and actually owned a company that did this kind of work, that had a, what do they call that, an air operator's permit for doing helicopter work. And he was checked out on the, I can't remember the name of the helicopter. It's one of those Eurocopters, not a Sikorsky, but anyway,
Airbus.
Regardless. Pardon me?
Airbus?
No, it wasn't an Airbus. It was
Okay.
another prominent, very fancy modern helicopter. But he, on his show today, which just ended, he was talking about the fact, or talked a little bit about what he thinks may have happened in this scenario. And I think he did a really good job of kind of explaining to the folks that listen to his show what perhaps was a possibility in this accident, based on his experience flying helicopters. And so just thought I'd throw that out there.
And just real quick to point out what special VFR is, because there might be some questions about what that means. It basically is, so VFR is obviously visual flight rules. For a lot of the airspace in the United States, that basically means you need 3 statute miles of visibility. For the vast majority of the time, it's 500, cloud clearance is 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above, or 2,000 feet horizontal. If you're given this special VFR clearance in a controlled airspace, so basically meaning that the conditions are less than VFR, you have to have at least 1 statute mile of visibility, and then you have to also remain clear of clouds, and that applies to class B, C, D, E.
I told you about my story when I was getting checked out at Riverside Airport.
Maybe.
So that I could, in a 150, I was still in the Air Force, but I'd just gotten my equivalency for, the civilian ratings, commercial, multi-engine, limited to centerline thrust. And, actually, no, I just passed a check ride in Mississippi to get my commercial single engine rating. And so I went out to California, and the whole purpose of that was to take up my mom and dad. And so I went out to the airport to get checked out in the Cessna.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in the briefing room, and I mean, it is just probably conditions like this crash occurred. And I'm looking out the window, and it's just like all you can see is fog. Everything's obscured. And the guy goes, "Okay, let's go." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, we're going to go out to the airplane and get you checked out." And I said, "How can we possibly fly in this weather?" And he goes, "Special VFR." And I went, "You're kidding, right?" He goes, "Nope." Yeah, it was crazy. It was like,
I have never asked for a special VFR, and I don't anticipate that I ever will. A lot of folks will use it to depart a airport that is less than VFR conditions when they know they're going immediately to an area where they can be VFR or remain VFR. I don't know. I just I'm not paid to fly at this point. I don't have get there-itis, and I can wait for better weather conditions.
Right.
Even with an instrument rating.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I mentioned all of the passengers that perished in this, and one person who also perished was the pilot. And let me see if I can find the information.
And while you're looking for that, that's not to say that special VFR shouldn't be used. It's there, and it's for a reason. It's just that myself personally, kind of my feelings on it. Right.
It's. I'm sure that there are some legitimate uses for.
Oh, there completely are. That's why it's there as a thing.
Well, the helicopter's pilot was Ara Zaboyan, according to a former colleague and neighbor. And by the way, I watched an interview from one of the local news affiliates with pilot Kurt Dietz, who worked at the Island Express Helicopter Company with Zaboyan. Said he considered Zaboyan a friend and a trustworthy pilot. And let's see, according to the FAA's pilot certification database, Zaboyan is an instrument certified pilot who earned his commercial pilot's license in 2007. He is also a certified flight instructor for instrument instruction for helicopter pilots. The database also shows Zaboyan was up to date on FAA required annual medical exams. And this was as of, I think, June of last year, probably the last time he got a medical certificate. So, yeah, sad story. Hoping that we'll find out more information about what actually happened here, and hopefully we'll be able to learn from it. Yes.
We always say we want more information about things, and then a lot of times we just don't get it because the nature of the incident is not high profile enough. This is one where we will certainly have a lot more information in the weeks and months to come, I think.
Agreed.
Interesting. I actually did not know this. For special VFR for fixed wing pilots, if you're requesting special VFR at nighttime, you have to be instrument rated and have an aircraft that is IFR equipped. But that same, at least for pilots being IFR certified, that is not a requirement for rotary wing at night. I did not know that.
But we should say, I don't think that this
wasn't at night. No, this was just something that I learned that
I didn't know that either, but that makes sense. It makes
more sense for helicopters.
No, I mean, it makes sense regarding the fixed wing thing. For if you're going to be doing this at night, then you had best be instrument rated and the airplane instrument qualified or certified.
Exactly.
Oh, I can't imagine doing special VFR.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, why not just do IFR? And a lot of people have asked that about this accident. Why not? Why didn't he just fly IFR? And well, the facility that he was going to was not an airport or a special helipad that has like an instrument approach procedure to it. So at some point, I mean, he could have started, I guess, IFR, but I guess he didn't need to. He was clearly VFR until he got up toward the mountains, basically. And that's when he would have had to transition to special VFR or just land at an airport and just told the passengers, hey, you need to take a taxi or an Uber to go the rest of the distance. And I'm sure.
I guess that's the part of the problem of flying high personalities, well-known personalities around. You don't want to let them down. You want to get to the destination. There's probably a window that they need to be there, and there is a lot of commercial pressure to get the job done because you don't want to let these people down. Whereas if he'd been there on his own, he probably would have gone, nah, not important. I'll turn around and go back, land somewhere else, or just as Steph said, do it on another day. So that's a difficult thing, and that may be an aspect that we will end up considering when we find out more about it.
I'm sure that has to be some factor in this whole thing. By the way, Fabian, thank you, told us that the Eurocopter actually became Airbus helicopters. So we were both right. So
I don't know if it was one of those though, but I know. I mean, 9-seater.
No, it wasn't. It was a Sikorsky, but I was talking about Adam Curry,
right.
and he was checked out on the Eurocopter Airbus, I guess. Okay, just trying to keep it above 50%. Which is
it's a
struggle
in the vicinity anyway.
Yeah, yeah, something close. The next item here is, I love the headline: Iranian aircraft slides onto highway after pilot misses runway.
Misses in quotes.
He's really missing it right now.
I don't see a runway in the picture.
No, I don't either.
No.
Were you able to see some of the videos?
Yeah.
Oh man, people, listeners, please do check the show notes and make sure that you see, if you haven't already seen the one where they're here, let me tell you what happened first, and then we'll get to the videos. An Iranian passenger plane ended up belly down, which is the best way, I think.
Preferable, yeah,
in the middle of a highway after reportedly skidding off the runway during a botched landing. That's a good description. Botched landing. 2 of the 136 passengers on board suffered leg injuries in the incident in the city of Mashhad, medics said. The Caspian Airlines McDonnell Douglas MD-83 was flying there from Tehran. State TV quoted a provincial aviation official as saying that the pilot landed the aircraft too late, and this caused him to miss the runway. So I'm assuming what they mean is they probably landed too far down the runway and didn't have enough runway left at the end to keep it on the runway, and exited the runway, and I guess on the outskirts or periphery of the airport, and on this very busy, looks like at least a 4-lane highway or big road.
They call it a boulevard, which is
a boulevard.
It's down very nice, isn't it?
Yes.
We parked the airplane in a boulevard.
Yes, he did. He did park the airplane without any landing gear left on it. A reporter who was on board the aircraft said that the back wheel of the plane had broken off. Oh, the back wheel. You got to have that back wheel.
Just the one?
Yeah. And that the plane had skidded on its fuselage. Yeah, all the wheels were gone, based on what I saw in the videos. Anyway, so on this one video, it's so funny because, I could say funny because nobody died, and I don't think anybody was seriously injured, except for maybe the egos of the pilots. But the front door is open, and people are just walking off the airplane like they were just deplaning, like a normal flight.
Yeah,
okay, I guess I'll get off now.
To pick their luggage up and come back off with it.
They're
this is fine, right?
Yeah.
They're just walking around. I'm thinking, where are these people going? They're just all walking away. I'm thinking, well, we're here.
Like we arrived at our destination.
Taxi.
Grab a cab and go to work, I guess.
If you checked your bags, then, and I'm assuming that they're looking for a ride to the terminal so they can get their. Well, wait a minute. The luggage is still on board this. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, very amusing video. So check it out.
And very fortunate that really no one was hurt here.
Really,
not only on the plane, but on the highway.
Yeah,
apart
that's kind
from
of
landing deep, do we have anything else? Any information on?
I don't know.
On the videos?
I wonder if this is. I haven't looked on Aviation Herald to see if Simon has given us any more information about it. Have you all been here? Why don't we do that right now while we're talking, while we're kind of just hanging out with each other, talking aviation. Let me pull up the Aviation Herald, which is my favorite website for this sort of thing. And let's see, this happened a couple of days ago, and it is called Caspian, right? Yep, Caspian MD-83. And let's see, on January 27th, 2020, in the evening, Tehran time, Iran's AIB released their preliminary report in Persian, stating that the captain was the pilot flying. The aircraft had departed runway 29 left, had flown about 50 minutes, and landed on Mashar's runway 13, but overran the end of the runway. There have been no injuries. According to ground observers at the airport, the aircraft landed long, went through the airport perimeter fence, and came to a stop at the expressway. Tower activated emergency services, who arrived at the aircraft within 4 minutes. Wow, that's pretty good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we know. And if there's any other information out there and it's not in the Aviation Herald, then it's probably not available, I think.
Oh, we'll find out.
Looks like the weather was nice. Winds were not strong, and cav okay. So we'll have to revisit this, hopefully. Okay, moving on to item G. This is interesting. Delta is ordered to pay $50,000 fine over allegations it discriminated against Muslim passengers. And this is from CNN. The U.S. Department of Transportation ordered Delta Airlines on Friday to pay a $50,000 fine to settle allegations it violated a federal law by discriminating against Muslim passengers. The department released a consent order that alleges Delta engaged in discriminatory conduct against 3 Muslim passengers on 2 separate incidents in 2016. Wow, that's several years ago, including one flight from Paris to Ohio and another flight from Amsterdam to New York City. In both instances, the passengers were removed from their seats after flight attendants and fellow passengers became nervous, citing their behavior. The order notes that the captain of an aircraft is the final authority as to the operation of that aircraft, including any decision to refuse to transport a passenger. But the order says that authority does not allow discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, ethnicity, or sex. In both cases, Delta's corporate security department informed the flight crews of, quote, no red flags regarding the passengers. So they were saying, we think it's okay. The airline said in a statement to CNN that it strives to model inclusion. While we understand that our best customer service was not reflected in how the incident was handled, we disagree with the Department of Transportation's contention that Delta engaged in discriminatory conduct, said Delta spokeswoman Emma Kate Protis. For that reason, we have worked to improve our investigative process since these incidents, and we have supporting programs, policies, training, and procedures that back up our commitments in this area. In the order, Delta wrote that it disagreed with the department's contention that it engaged in discriminatory conduct. Here's a quote from them. While Delta does not dispute that each of these 2 incidents could have been handled differently, Delta asserts that this fact does not necessarily lead to the conclusion that Delta acted improperly. So that's an interesting phrase, I think. In the Paris incident, a married couple, both U.S. citizens, were boarding a flight from Paris to Cincinnati, Ohio, when a fellow passenger raised concerns with a flight attendant. Although the passenger did not explain everything that made her nervous, according to the order, the flight attendant stated that she walked through the cabin on a routine task. She observed Mr. X texting on his cell phone, not his real name, using the word Allah several times. As the flight attendant approached Mr. X, the flight attendant reports that Mr. X made eye contact with her but did not smile and reached over to pat his wife's hand. That's kind of strange. Another flight attendant walked through the cabin and observed Mr. X texting on his phone, and as she passed, he changed his screen. The 2 flight attendants shared their observations with the captain, who then requested security officers remove the passengers for additional vetting. The couple was interviewed and cleared before the plane departed, but the captain refused to accept the passengers back on board because the flight attendants were uncomfortable having the couple travel on the flight. It appears that, but for Mr. and Mrs. X's perceived religion, Delta would not have removed or denied them reboarding, the order says. The Amsterdam flight several days later returned to the gate over passengers' concerns that a fellow passenger had received a small package from a person of similar ethnicity in the gate area, according to the order. The plane began departing, but returned to the gate because the flight attendants expressed without any intervening incident that they remained uncomfortable. Moreover, even though security inspected the area surrounding Mr. A's seat and his baggage was offloaded, Mr. A was not subjected to additional security screening prior to being rebooked. Delta said that both flight attendants observed the passenger switch seats while on board and behave nervously. So the order requires Delta to not commit additional violations and requires additional civil rights training for Delta employees. That training must make clear that in the absence of a valid safety or security concern, passenger or crew discomfort is not an acceptable basis to deny transportation. Delta said that after both incidents, the airline reviewed and clarified its procedures to investigate suspicious activity to make them more collaborative and objective than they were at the time of the incidents. So looks like they were slapped on the hand. They made changes to policies, procedures, etc. But the fact still remains. Now, let me tell you, at my airline, Acme, if we have some kind of a incident like this, some suspicion that a passenger might not be someone we want to have on board the airplane, we can convene something called the let's see if I can think of a different name. We'll call it a conflict security intervention team or something like that, where we can bring together people from various departments to discuss the incident, so that the captain doesn't have, a limited, he gets more information, or he or she gets more information about the whole thing. And that includes Delta, excuse me, I'll have to wipe that out. That includes Acme corporate security people. It includes the lead flight attendant. It includes the gate agent. It includes the pilot/pilots, and also the dispatcher of the flight, and sometimes even more folks on the team to get together. But they discuss the incident or the issue and then make recommendations as to what they think should happen. But again, as the FAA stated, the bottom line is also always with the captain. However, caveat, if you as a captain make a decision like this, you should be prepared to be able to explain how you came to the decision. And, so in other words, you're going to probably have to talk to some people about it. So be quite sure that you really want to do something like this.
Yeah. So here's my thing about all of this. If you get on any form of transportation here in the United States, there's especially public transportation. So trains, buses, things like that. There are signs quite frequently that say, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really make clear what that something has to be. It's really just things that make people nervous or concerned that something nefarious is happening. So, how far does that extend? I don't know, but I guess that's why you have to have this kind of collaborative effort to try and make sure that you've arrived at as many of the facts as possible, and then make a decision that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Nick, what do you think about this?
I think we discussed this at quite a bit of length when it first happened, because it was a while ago, but I do recall mentioning, or having these two instances of mentioning them. Unless you've got strong grounds, I don't think you've got a leg to stand on, and I don't think these are strong grounds. I think this was following some terrorist activity either in the States or in Europe that probably caused a heightened level of anxiety amongst the crew, and it doesn't take much then for people to be dead set against someone saying, well, I'm not going to have them on my aircraft because they look a bit like the people who might have done these acts of terror. And that is not a strong ground. You've got to be really careful in these circumstances to be fair and above board. And I just think because of the world situation at the time, it might have influenced their better judgment. They made a decision that they probably wouldn't have done at another time.
And I kind of understand trying to put myself in that captain's or those captains' shoes. When you have your flight attendant crew expressing just being uncomfortable about having these passengers on board, I can kind of see that would be a strong influence to not accept the passengers on board. But I think sometimes you just have to do the right thing and just realize that you may not have a great relationship for a while with those particular flight attendants. But I can see all the different pressures that might have been put upon the captain. But as the FAA and the companies have said, you have to do the right thing, and that there's nothing that, besides being uncomfortable with the situation, then you must allow these passengers to continue to
and particularly after they had then been checked
right.
and cleared. So you
Yeah.
go, okay, well, that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
We've been through the procedure. Everything's okay now. No, apparently it wasn't okay. So
Right.
you go, well, come on, folks.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how long it takes for someone standing there to actually be able to read someone's cell phone screen multiple times, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
Like,
we
what
know
is-
that people make a very quick decision on whether they're
Mhm.
going to like someone or not, or trust
Uh-huh.
someone or not. It's almost an instinctive reaction, and it's quite hard once you've formed that opinion to argue your way out of it, or to even the slightest thing's going to just do nothing but reinforce your prejudice.
And if you're a religious person, there are all kinds of apps for smartphones and stuff that have prayers on them. And obviously, if you're of Muslim descent, it's, instead of saying God, it's going to say Allah or Allah.
Exactly.
Oh,
on there.
exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't
So-
necessarily mean that this person has
No, you're
Allah on their phone. That must mean they're a terrorist.
Exactly. So an element of education comes in here as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, moving on then, another crash. This one, a military crash. The U.S. Air Force announced that one of their airplanes crashed in eastern Afghanistan on Monday. Colonel Sonny Leggett said, while the cause of the crash is under investigation, there are no indications that the crash was caused by enemy fire. The aircraft crashed in the Dayak district, Ghazni province, an area with a strong Taliban presence. It's unclear how many people were on board, but we do know, since this was written, that there were 2 on board, and they were Lieutenant Colonel Paul Voss, 46 years old, assigned to the ACC at J.B. Langley Eustis, and Captain Ryan Phaneuf, 30, assigned to the 34th Bomb Squadron at Ellsworth Air Force Base. And this airplane is, what do they call it? An E-11A. Never heard of an E-11A, but everybody else knows it as a Bombardier executive jet. It kind of reminds me of like a Bombardier 145 or something like that. The engines on the tail.
Or E145.
Yeah, E145. There you go. I'm guessing. I don't know. Might be a different model, but apparently, the guy I was flying with on this last trip flew C-17s in the U.S. Air Force, and he spent several deployments over to Afghanistan and Iraq, and he knew all about this particular jet. And basically, it's an airplane that has all these fancy electronics, communications things, and he said they can like connect people using different communication systems, and like if somebody's on VHF, they can transition it to UHF so that everybody can hear everybody else. So it's for facilitating better communications with air and ground forces, and also other in-air missions. And basically just goes around, and I must fly around in circles or something like that, and then after it's been used in one area, then they may be dispatched to go to a different area and do the same kind of thing. So I didn't even know that this airplane existed, never heard of it, but that's what I kind of gathered from the information from my first officer. So,
The Taliban claimed responsibility for this, didn't they?
Yes.
And they also attacked the forces that came to try and recover the bodies and examine the wreckage. It created quite a firefight. So, claiming responsibility is not the same as actually downing an aircraft. But we know that after, the story of the A300 that had 2 air-to-air missiles fired at it, one of which nearly brought it down, that there are air-to-air missiles floating around this area. Do we know what, can you remind me what stage of flight it was? Was it shortly after takeoff?
I'm not sure it says. I think I gathered that it was up at cruise altitude or whatever that is.
Well, that's probably going to be fairly high, in which
Yeah.
case they're not going to have anything that'll reach up there. So in
not
that
sure.
case, the Taliban's
Uh,
claim is probably just convenient.
Yeah, what it said here, it didn't say what stage of flight it was in, but it says the Taliban are not believed to have had the sorts of anti-aircraft missiles needed to bring down a high-flying aircraft, which
Yeah,
sounds
high
like it
flying
was
aircraft.
high-flying.
Yeah, that does. But they had time to put a Mayday call out. But other than that, we don't really know much about it.
No. Again, and we may not ever actually find
Which
out
to
more.
a certain extent is a good thing, because the
Yeah.
military needs to keep its secrets. We all know that.
Sure.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah, and I
very
guess
glad
even-
though that the special forces eventually managed to get in and recover the deceased. So well done, guys, and thanks very much for doing that. I'm sure the families will appreciate your work very much indeed.
And at the same time, it actually said that they did destroy some of the sensitive equipment, so that did not fall into unwanted.
That was
Yeah.
probably one of the most important parts of
Mm.
that mission. It's just
Mm.
taking care of things that they don't want to
Mhm.
fall into other hands.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally in the news, we have some positive news for Boeing, which is a unusual thing recently. Boeing's massive wing folding 777X just flew for the first time. I was watching it live, actually. They had a stream going on.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I wasn't there. I was just here in my house, or I might have been on a trip. Maybe I was on a trip. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The Boeing 777X made its maiden flight in Everett, Washington on January 25th. When it's on the ground, its wingtips fold upwards. Let's see. The newest passenger plane landed in Seattle. Its wingtips did something new to the world of commercial aviation. They folded upwards as the plane was still rolling down the tarmac, and not for takeoff, by the way, or landing on the runway. They're talking about probably while it was taxiing in or taxiing out. When the new wide-body 777X enters service, it will seat as many as 426 people. Wow. Can't imagine that many people.
A
on
lot.
airplane. In its longest of two configurations. But while the size of the plane's fuselage is what allows it to carry so many people, it's the design of the wings that really sets it apart from an engineering perspective. In both models of the new aircraft, the 777-8 and 777-9, the wings will measure 235 feet from tip to folding tip. That's wider than the wings on existing Boeing 777s or the 787, and about double the wingspan of a 737. Now, I don't know, anybody out there know, or perhaps you do, Nick, do you know what the wingspan is on the Airbus A380? It's probably at least
No, but
that.
it's slightly more than a 340, but that's
Okay.
all I can remember.
Yeah, maybe somebody can look that up, or
Hold on,
somebody in
I'm
the chat
Googling it.
room. Okay.
262 feet.
Okay, so that's another 30 feet longer, basically, than the 777X. But the difference is that, as we all know, one of the negatives of operating the A380, in addition to the fact that its footprint is very, very heavy, and it has to have specially fortified taxiways and ramp surfaces to support the weight distribution of the jet. The wingspan is probably its most limiting factor in operating at various places, because it just doesn't fit into most airport terminal gates because of the fact that the wings are so wide. And so what Boeing thought of was, let's try to make this a bigger wingspan, get a little bit more lift, and but still make it such that it can still use the gates that are in most abundance out there. Basically the same kind of footprint or wing print or whatever you want to call it as a regular 777. And so they came up with this idea. Of course, now Nick is very familiar with airplanes that you've probably flown some, their wings actually folded up. I'm guessing. I don't know. Have you flown any like?
Both the Phantom and the Hornet had wing fold systems. So yeah, I'm very familiar.
Okay.
And I think it's quite an elegant solution to make sure that this aircraft can operate from all the airports that an existing 777 can, because one of the drawbacks of the 380 is that there aren't that many airports where it can operate from. And you don't want to have an aircraft with such a big wingspan that you're limited on diversions and places you can actually go to. because it rather defeats the object. This is quite a good idea. I like this idea. I'm sure the technology on how and when it folds has been well thought out and engineered, and of course they'll have to keep a close eye and do regular inspections of that mechanism to make sure that there's no fatigue, because it's obviously a fatigue point that will occur. But I think the additional weight of having those wing folding and the locking mechanisms will be more than offset by the fact that it's built a great deal with carbon composites and other modern materials that reduce the weight of it. I think it's going to be a very successful airplane. I think it looks gorgeous. I think it's going to be very popular. It'll be quite a world beater. It's going to be real stiff competition for the A350-1000. And I'm delighted to see Boeing having some success and some good news to push out. And the reason I say that mainly is because we don't want the world to become a one aircraft manufacturer world where Airbus rules the roost, because that is never good. I'm a great fan of competition. And I think whilst Boeing and Airbus can leapfrog each other in technology, they'll both continue to strive to work to better the other company, and they will be competitive with prices. And that makes a very healthy industry. I despair at the idea that one or other of those two manufacturers would get into such a dominant position that they can control what happens in the industry. So I think this is really good news.
I think that in most cases, competition is a good thing.
Yeah.
It ain't Boeing, I ain't going.
There you go. I'd love to fly on this, actually, to see what it looks like and how it works. And it does look a very elegant airplane.
Captain Nick, you mentioned the extended use of composites, and that's really the reason they were able to do this new wing, is because the previous wings were aluminum and not composite, or mostly aluminum. And I guess this new wing it's much more composite material, lighter, and they were able to extend the wing, using the wing
very
system.
high aspect ratio, which means it's a very efficient. You know, if you look at the wing of a glider, very long and thin, because that aspect ratio gives high levels of lift and low levels of drag, and that's the kind of wing they've gone for. So I think from that point of view, it's going to be a really good performing aircraft. Interesting, Deanna mentions the same thing that I was going to when you watched the video of it taking off, Jeff. I realize it's probably very light at takeoff, but it barely rotated when the main gear were off the ground, and I noticed it had an extremely flat attitude for landing as well. What do you think that's about? Do you think that's going to be normal for that aircraft?
I don't know. It might have something to do with the fact, as you mentioned, it's very light. I know they had enough fuel to go up and fly it for 2 or 3 hours, I believe, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's mostly because it was so light.
I think you're probably right. It's just that I'm used to seeing airliners pitch to 10 or 12 degrees before the gear come off.
Yeah.
The nose wheel had hardly lifted. And commentators were saying, and I think they're probably right, is that they used quite conservative rotate speeds, I suspect, to give them plenty of margin, in which case it was probably faster than it would be flying at rotate than it would be in normal operations when they've got it all fine down.
Right.
But it's just that the landing speed as well, perhaps it was a bit higher than it would be in its normal operating regime, but it was extremely flat on the approach and barely needed to flare. So we were talking about wheelbarrowing on the very last show, and I was thinking, oh geez, I hope that isn't going to be something that the aircraft is prone to. I doubt it very much, but
I hope not.
No, I like that theory of using for the first flight of an aircraft, having those margins built in for speeds. I think that's probably.
I think that's quite likely the reason.
Yeah, I don't think I recall ever seeing the first flight of any other airplane, so maybe that's kind of a normal thing. I don't know. But, then again, the ones that I think of are the ones like at Farnborough International Air Show where
they're so light that they just,
they hoof it off. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Good question, though. I don't know the answer to it.
Guess we'll have to watch a few more of their test flights and see what happens.
Oh, well, I'm sure. I hope we'll see plenty of it because they're going to probably have quite an extensive test regime, and I look forward to. And quite often, you get a decent documentary about it. They did one about the certification of the original 777, which I watched with great interest. There's fabulous scenes of it's doing its maximum weight rejection. And all the steam and the smoke coming off the brakes, and then they plow it through deep water to see where all the water splashes, and will the engines be ingest water and be flamed out, and all these fantastic tests they do. They fly them incredibly cold regimes and incredibly hot countries. The documentary was superb, and I think if you're going to go and fly this aircraft, to be able to see the lengths that they go through to test it, I think you'll be very confident about the machine when you get on board.
What's the one that they do that they like over rotate it on purpose and
drag the tail down.
They drag the tail. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah,
like
they
do.
Unstick test or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they so it's the lowest possible speed you can unstick the main gear. So they rotate well below the normal rotate speed, and then run a special bumper on the tail along the runway with this thing just scraping along, sparks coming off.
It's great.
Well, that's real test pilot stuff. That is.
That's what we live for. All right. Well, you know what time it is? It's time to get to know the APG crew, at least find out what has been going on with us since the last show. And let's see. Steph, you weren't with us for the entire time. Well, you were with us even.
When was our last show?
Last week.
Okay, thank you.
What was it? Wednesday, I think, of last week.
It must have been Wednesday.
I think so. Yeah, I was over at Liz's house and had a great time. By the way, we didn't mention it because it had not yet occurred, but Liz made me just an absolutely scrumptious dinner of shrimp pasta with pesto sauce. It was really, really good. She's quite a cook. So, Liz, I can't wait to have some more of your cooking. And thanks for that special massage. No, I'm just kidding.
Too much information.
Liz just turned like 100 shades of red there.
I'm just kidding, of course. I was hoping that embarrass somebody, probably more me than anybody else. Anyway, so what have you been up to?
Yeah, so I think I did mention, I mentioned on the last show, I was off to Chicagoland for a teaching course for work, providing instruction to folks learning to do the types of injections that I do for work. Nothing flying related other than the fact that I took an airplane to get there. Thank you very much, Southwest Airlines, for the safe and on-time flight into Midway Airport, the place where we do the conferences. About 15 minutes down the road from Midway, and it's much easier and logistically convenient to go there as opposed to O'Hare. So, nice flight over. Kind of some typical Chicago weather, kind of snowing lightly, but kind of on the warm side. It was above freezing, but still snowing, which is always interesting to me. So not really sticking to the ground or anything too treacherous. The next day, it was kind of, next 2 days, it was kind of this wintry mix of rain and snow and sleet. And I have a lot of, in addition to doing work stuff there, have a lot of family and friends in the area. So some of them are also runners. So we went for a long run on Saturday afternoon, and it was just this horrible sleety snow, like really windy. Every time you turned into the wind, it was pelting your eyeballs, and not the most pleasant, but I had my Chicago hot dog, Nick, my Portillo's hot dog.
Oh, you lucky guy.
I like him too.
Well, Nick made
as much as me.
Sure to make a special mention of having them. So I did have one. Unfortunately, I ate it before I went running, which was probably not the greatest idea, but and then had a repetition
during the run. That's perhaps just like reliving the experience.
Yes, exactly. And they're so good. I wanted to experience it. And then had a lovely evening that night with a lot of my girlfriends in town. So that was nice to catch up. We've known each other for about 30 years at this point. So that's
brilliant.
Yeah, it was very nice. And then a uneventful ride home on Sunday.
Oh, well, you had an easy time.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Couple of late nights. I feel like I'm still trying to some of the networking, which Sir Neville of PTUK will understand when you're with work colleagues. Networking often occurs and into some of the later hours of the evening occasionally. So sleep was a little on the lacking side, but all good.
So
did your lectures go down well?
Yeah, this time around, I actually did not have to give a lecture. I was just there for the hands-on teaching part of the course. So we actually use cadavers and live X-ray so that folks can
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, these are hands-on procedures. You got to have hands-on experience doing them, just like anything. It's our version of the sim. So
okay,
kind of.
So are
we
the
don't
cadavers
see many dead bodies in the sim?
Well, not normally.
Not normally.
Although
but anyway.
at Acme we see them in the parking lot.
Oh jeez, not a good
no
situation there.
Probably move on from that.
Yeah. quickly.
Yes.
But anyway, that was my weekend, and just been back at work and trying to catch up on sleep and life and everything else. And I need to get out flying soon because I have not done that in a long time. But going to take a look at my schedule
even
here.
The listeners are starting to notice.
I know they've noticed. I know it's been bad. Looking at my schedule for February to get out and get back into the swing of things. So we shall see.
Excellent. I look forward to have you take me up flying someday.
Yeah, we should do that. That'd be fun.
And then she'll jump out and leave you to it.
Like you got this, right?
I might
you're a pilot.
I might be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
A little bit of experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Any big plans for you between now and next week?
Yeah, I have to. Surprisingly, another trip for me, but this time it's family related business down to Florida.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, good. Let's see, Nick. How about you, sir?
Got to keep this short and sweet. The last show I did mention that during the Sywell Aviation Museum lecture I gave, I met one of our listeners. Now, obviously, I was trying to recruit the entire room to becoming listeners, and I hope at least some of them will be tuning in. But Neil Holding has actually written in to say, I was the bloke you met. And thank you very much for adding in, Neil. We chatted for a short time. Sadly, it was all a bit busy, and you never have enough time with these things. But he did write and say how much he enjoyed the talk, which he's obliged to do since he's a listener. It was great to meet you. Also talked of South African Airways 747, the Helderberg incident, which might make a possible plane tail. So thank you for that suggestion, Neil. I'm going to take a look at that and see. And that, by the way, is number 14 in the feedback, so we don't have to do that anymore.
I was writing a private note. Okay, we're going to skip that one in the feedback.
So thanks very much indeed for giving me your name again, Neil. My apologies for forgetting it. And the other bloke I'm going to bump into, I hope, over the weekend is Dave Gooch, who's another of our listeners. He's a 737 pilot in the States, but he is British, and his family come from up north a little way, and he's visiting them. And on his way through London, he said, any chance we could get together? So I think we're going to try and touch base on Sunday, and he might come down here and take him to my local for a Sunday roast, which sounds like fun. So I hope you can make it over, Dave. And if you're anywhere near Atlanta, can you bring a pair of earphones? Because Jeff's got me a pair of earbuds that I'm trying to get hold of. Don't worry if you can't.
Send me an email, Jeff at airlinepilotguy.com.
There you go.
Let me know where you live, and I can, if we have enough time, I'll send them to you.
Well, we'll be lucky because I think he's probably departing tomorrow. So I think that's going to happen. Anyway, I'll try and remember to take my tape recorder so I can record Dave's dulcet tones and find out a little about him. Other than that, no, everything's fine and quite quiet here, and I'm busy trying to get a couple of plane tails in the bag, as it were, so that I don't have to worry over the next coming weeks about producing them. I've done a couple of cheats lately, talking about myself, which I never like doing nearly so much as talking about other people. So try and get those done. But no, that's it from me, sir.
Well, you never need worry about doing those, Nick. I mean, we love them, but don't put so much pressure on yourself to always have one ready for the show.
What, you don't want me to do anymore?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. If you're reading between the lines, don't worry about that anymore. No, I'm just kidding. That's one of them.
And that's the end of Plain Tales.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Right, let's get them.
As everybody knows, it's one of the best parts of the show, if not the
best part.
other than the end.
So hopefully quite soon.
Speaking of Dave Gooch, you'll hear his name soon when I talk about the Coffee Fund. He is a new patron of the show, so that's cool. Anywho, let's see. Is it my turn?
I think so.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I flew a trip this week, left on Monday morning, and I used the light rail system here in Atlanta to get down to the airport on, we call it MARTA. And I was looking through some stuff, and I was looking at some tweets, and I noticed this tweet from Dave Lieb that he was looking forward to being on the airplane, the flight that I was about to fly from Atlanta to Memphis that morning. And I went, huh? What's going on here? So I, quickly replied to his tweet and said, what's going on? So I ended up meeting Dave in the gatehouse area before boarding. And he said, yeah, he's, well, first of all, Dave's a musician. A lot of this might be actually repeated when I play the.
Does he play the trumpet?
Meetup. He does not. Well, I don't think he does.
Okay.
He's a multi-instrumentalist. I think mostly like bass guitar, lead guitar, keyboards, that kind of stuff. But he probably does play the trumpet. He probably plays everything. He's a teacher, and he's a studio musician, and just multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist.
How do you play a studio?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm playing my studio right now. Different kind of studio though. So I kind of I just thought he was heading from Atlanta to Memphis for some kind of a gig or whatever else, and then I come to find out that actually he was kind of on vacation, and he was basically making a slight detour from his vacation. He lives in the Boston area. He was heading down to Boston to Fort Myers, Florida, and then eventually Naples to meet up with a friend down there. And he said he saw that I was flying to Memphis, and he thought, I'd like to check out Memphis, especially important for people who are musicians. A lot of music-related stuff in the Memphis area, and so he just made a little excursion to Memphis. We met up with each other that afternoon, and enjoyed some wonderful barbecue at the Blue City Cafe, which is my favorite spot for ribs. And I think a lot of people agree with that that live in the area. And so enjoyed some good beer and good barbecue. And I actually made a recording of our little visit after we walked back to the hotel in which he was staying. So bear with me. It's about a 9-minute piece of feedback, but we had so much to talk about, and I thought we'd share some of it with you all. Ladies and gentlemen, are here with one of our Coffee Fund cadre members, Coffee Bar Club members, David Lieb, or Dave Lieb. And we've been just having a great time here in Memphis, Tennessee. And ironically, we were talking about the genesis of the show. And for those of you who have listened to the show for a very, very long time may remember that I started the podcast back in, I think it was September of 2009. I did it on a layover, and I happened to, it's really ironic because we are sitting at the bar of the Holiday Inn in Memphis, Tennessee, and this is where I actually recorded my very first aviation podcast, Catholic Pilot, back in 2009. And this is where David is staying. Now we are, my crew stays now a little bit, a few blocks north at the Sheraton. But, honestly, I really wish that we were back here at the Holiday Inn because I've stayed here probably tens or maybe even hundreds of nights in my 31-year career at Acme Airlines. So it's kind of bittersweet, actually. But anyway, David, who lives in the Boston area, was looking at the schedule on the, let's see, what do we call it? The APG community calendar. and noticed that I was going to be flying from Atlanta to Memphis this morning, the 27th of January. And he said, I'm looking forward to, I had just happened to be looking at my Twitter feed, and I saw somebody tweet, I'm looking forward to riding on the Mad Dog from Atlanta to Memphis this morning. And I went, huh? Well, what's this about? And I immediately recognized your name, David, because as I mentioned, he's a Coffee Fun Cadre member, classic method. And I thought that's cool. So I communicated with him and said, well, let's, is there a meetup planned? And I said, no, but my schedule is wide open for today. We all I did this morning was fly from Atlanta to here, left Atlanta around, what was it, about 9:30-ish, got here about 9:30-ish with a 1 hour time change. And I said, I don't have anything on my schedule at all today. And why don't we plan on, if your schedule's open, why don't we plan on meeting up for like a late lunch, early dinner? And so that's what we did. So we have already engorged ourselves with amazing Memphis ribs at the Blue City Cafe. And man, if you're ever visiting Memphis and you really enjoy barbecue, especially ribs, I think that the Blue City Cafe is the place to go. So we had some great beer and awesome ribs and some great seafood gumbo and really good local IPAs. And so we walked from over there to over here, much quieter here in the in the hotel bar area.
We're not sitting directly underneath a television, and good in here. It's kind of quiet. Nice, good for a recording.
Absolutely. And Dave knows a lot about recording. He's a studio musician. And so we have been having just the best time. At least I have. I can't speak for him. Just talking about so many things that we share a passion for, flying, obviously, but also music. And if you've listened to the show for any period of time, you know that when I was in high school, music was a very, very big part of my life. And I was thinking that, ideally I'd become a studio musician. I finally realized that to be a studio musician, you have to be like in the top 0.5% of the like the 99.5 percentile of talented musicians, in my opinion. Anyway, I just figured it's not going to probably happen for me. So I decided to go with the flying gig instead. But I'm always impressed with people like Dave, who is what did you call a multi-instrumentalist? He plays, I don't know, what do you play?
Piano, keyboards, so all kinds of keyboard instruments, synthesizers, the Hammond organ, guitars, all guitars, acoustic, electric, bass, percussion, and I sing.
I've heard him sing just a couple little snippets here and there tonight, and yeah, he has a great voice, much better than mine. Hammond, I love the Hammond. So playing an organ is so much different than playing a piano, isn't it?
It really is. It's a different beast altogether. And I grew up primarily a piano player, and I learned in the studio from guys who really knew how to play the Hammond B3 organ. It's the one with all the drawbars, the two keyboard layers. If you don't know what that is, you've heard it. It's on a gazillion records, and it's used worldwide. But yeah, they started from the church. They said they were church organs, and then some people started pulling them out on recording studios, and it became like the sound.
What do they call the thing that makes the classic Hammond sound? It's kind of like a Shelley, or what is it called?
The Leslie speaker. Yeah, it's a rotating speaker, so it has like that effect. Again, something that you've heard 1,000 times and your whole life, and all sorts of music, and no one knows really how it's created, but it's a speaker that revolves around, and it just sometimes it goes slow, sometimes it goes fast, and I don't think it quite goes as fast as the fan and the engine, but it gets up there.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not several thousand RPM. Otherwise, it's probably self-destruct. But anyway, as you can tell, I'm really excited to be talking music with Dave. He went to Berklee School of Music, which is like it's a world-renowned school And Dana, he's living up in the Boston area. He said he just missed spending time watching that last sad Patriots game this past season, but his schedule didn't allow him to come down to Philly. Yeah, he was in New York at the time. He said. Anyway, so you guys are kindred souls, man. I know that you can share some good stories about living in Boston. He's from Newark, New Jersey, originally, or that area. So anyway, I'm gonna stop hogging the microphone, let Dave talk a little bit more, and then we'll wrap it up so that we don't take up the entire show.
All right. Yeah, it's been great hanging out with Captain Jeff down here in Memphis. This was, definitely planned this for a while when I saw the calendar, and I said this worked out with my schedule that I was going to be getting away this week. And heading down to Florida, I decided to take a pretty severe detour, and it's been well worth it because I grew up a complete av geek, love aviation my whole life. Growing up in the suburbs of New Jersey, I lived on the approach path to Newark and always saw the planes flying in, and used to travel a lot, even very, very young, did international travel. I told you my father was a college professor, so he dragged us on vacations all summer, all the time. So did a lot of flying as a kid, and I love it. And as far as being a pilot, I'm not a pilot, though I've had a few hours, in 172 and a Diamond DA-20.
You sound like a pilot to me. I would say that you're a student pilot.
Student pilot, yes. But I haven't achieved the, I remember that. But it comes exactly. Anyway, it's been wonderful, and I'm really glad I was able to bring you back to your roots, Jeff, being right here. And I just, I stay in Holiday Inn downtown. Looked like a good place to stay, and I did not realize I picked such a historic location for you, and bring you back to Catholic Pilot Guide #1 right here. Anyway, no, it's been great. I love Memphis. It's been too long since I've been here, so it's been a great day hanging out. Did the Sun Studios tour, which is where Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, all those guys recorded, and the great Sam Phillips, who started Sun Records, Memphis Recording Services. And so a lot of great music history here, right here in Memphis. B.B. King, so many, and Howlin' Wolf. It's amazing, so much. And Stax, soul and everything. It's incredible. So to me, it's a great city to be in with all this history, and love flying on the Mad Dog with you. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it was great. Wow. It's been a fantastic time talking about history and music and flying and so much more. So thanks again, Dave, for riding with me to Atlanta. And I'll remember this always. Thank you.
May as well. Thank you so much. APG.
Yeah. And then we started singing the song that's at the end of most of our shows. Airline Pilot Guy. And then
Excellent.
They kicked us out of the bar.
Get these guys out of here.
You weren't doing that in the cockpit then?
No, we weren't singing that in the cockpit. And that's my jacket. Thank you very much.
Oh, but you've lost weight.
Yeah, not really. No. It was just the way it was bunched up. I think made it look like it was loose on me.
Yes, nice lunchbox.
What do you mean lunchbox?
Well, there's a big bit of kit in the window.
Oh, that's the blue thing.
Is that the book?
Yeah, it's a logbook. The first officer I'm flying with takes the thing and sticks it like into where the front center windshield comes together with the glare shield, and it kind of just sticks. I've never seen anybody do that before, but that's what he does. And so I didn't think about the fact that was in that position when they were taking the photo. But anyway, whatever. We'll put the photos of the Dave and I in the cockpit, and also Dave in the Blue City Cafe bar wearing a really nice Save the Mad Dogs t-shirt. So
he sounds like a great guy, actually.
He is.
I'd love to meet him.
Well, I hope that he'll be at one of these big APG meetups at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And maybe Dana can meet up with him when Dana's up in the Boston area at some point. So, All right. That is the little meetup that I had with Dave. It was a lot of fun. Ended the trip that I was on yesterday, Wednesday afternoon. And as I was walking through the concourse, I hear somebody say, "Captain Jeff." And again, as I always do, I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? I must be in trouble. But this guy walks up.
One of these times that is going to be the case. You're like, "Captain Jeff, we're going to need you to chief
give
pilot
me your
office,
give me your ID and just follow us
Yes.
off the premises. But met up with Rob Bazanka. Is he still here with us in the chat room?
Was, yeah.
Bazanko, excuse me, not Bazanka. And he was in Greenville, South Carolina, and he was heading back to Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
So much warmer down here.
Yeah.
Rob, why were you? I'm just kidding.
I guess he had to go back to work.
Got to go home. Yeah,
He
understand.
works for a very performance-related car manufacturer that has a big facility in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, and so he was getting some education about various things with those cars. I guess I can say it. BMW works for
Both
BMW.
either that or Volkswagen in Greenville, right?
Oh, I didn't know that Volkswagen had a plant there too.
I think they do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But anyway, he was going to play the FBI card. Well, I'm glad you didn't, Robert. He is with us in the chat room. And anyway, just a quick conversation with Rob as we walked from the south end of the B concourse to the middle area of the thing. And he had a flight to catch and I had a train to catch. So it was very nice talking with you and meeting you, Rob. And hopefully we'll be able to see you at a APG meetup in the future. Next time I fly into Calgary, although I think the last time I flew into Calgary was in the 90s when I was a 727 first officer. So it's been a while. But I love Calgary. Beautiful. The Canadian Rocky Mountains and Alberta is just a beautiful province. People there are kind of rude, but other than that, they're
Canadians.
Yeah, they're Canadians. You know those rude Canadians.
Actually, I've yet to meet one.
Haven't you met Liz? Oh, you haven't met a nice one. I see. No, a rude one. I'm confused.
You can only say that because she's just left her computer.
Shh, don't tell anybody. Tell her what I said. Okay. That is all that I can think of. I have a trip next week, Tuesday through Thursday, so I'll be able to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday night. It's kind of a big deal here in the U.S. And then I'll be able to recover Monday, although I probably don't need any recovery time.
Who's going to have a wardrobe malfunction this year?
I don't know. Who's J-Lo?
Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. So
yeah, one of them.
One of them.
I know who I'd like to have a wardrobe malfunction.
Which one? I'm thinking Jennifer Lopez.
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, that's about it. So I think it might be a good time now for us to head over to the coffee fund spot. And we'll knock that out. And let me see if I can find it here. It is right here.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Where are you, Dave? Dave Lieb, you should be here singing with me, playing your bass guitar or whatever. Anyway, a couple different ways that you can be a financial supporter of the show. It's called the Coffee Fund Cadre or the Coffee Bar Club or whatever you want to call it. And a couple different ways, Classic Fund and Patreon. We've had 3 folks use the classic method, recurring payments or recurring contributions from Vigner and Jason and Alistair. So thank you guys for that. And also, hey, I mentioned last time, I think, or it was a couple times ago, we didn't have any new patrons, but we do this time in abundance. We have 2 new producers, Bob Francis and Keith Waymont. And let's see, 4 new executive producers. James Mack, Casey Blasso, Baltimore Tommy, and Dave Gooch, of which we were just mentioning he's going to meet up with Nick in the UK. So thank you, everybody, for becoming patrons of the show. We do really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get as much out of it as you put into it. So we do appreciate that. And now it's time for us to move on to your feedback, which is one of the best things about the show.
Captain, incoming message.
And before Nick gets back, can I correct myself from 2 seconds ago on a non-aviation point?
Sure.
That Volkswagen plant is in Chattanooga, not Greenville.
Oh,
It's
okay.
totally wrong. I knew it was somewhere in the South-ish.
Yeah, I did recall that there was one, but I thought, well,
I know. I was like,
probably a
wait.
couple
As soon as I
places.
said it, I went, "That's not right. Where is it?"
Well,
Like,
I think
can picture it, but
there is another big industry there, though, in that area, and I think it probably is because of BMW, and it's the tire manufacturer, the big guy with the
Michelin.
Michelin. Yeah,
Are they there?
I think
I
there's a
had no
big
idea,
Michelin
actually.
factory there. So, and I
Okay.
think that those are the tires they put on the BMWs.
We're still talking cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to correct my error. So sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we were talking about you
Mm.
too.
That's right. I heard that bit.
Oh.
Oops.
Didn't quite remember that one.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, how embarrassing. All right, let's start off with item 1 in the feedback folder from Ray Davis via Facebook. And he said, possible crew and listener thoughts. And this involves something he gave a link to, and I believe it was on Facebook. But here, let me see if I can find it on my...
Channel 9 News out of Sydney.
Ah, okay. Were you on that often?
Yeah, it's a fairly well-known news channel out there, well respected.
All right. Well, let's see what they have to say about this.
A trainee air traffic controller was at the helm when 2 Qantas planes loaded with passengers came a little too close for comfort. The Transport Safety Bureau now investigating the near miss at Sydney's domestic airport.
It was around 6:30 p.m. on August 5 last year. A trainee air traffic controller under supervision gave the green light for a Qantas Airbus A330 to take off from Sydney, bound for Melbourne. At the time, a Qantas Boeing 737 was coming into land from Brisbane. Air traffic control realised if the 737 continued to land, the planes would get too close, instructing the 737 at around 400 feet to go around and come in to land again. That put both aircraft turning to the right, and their projected flight paths were converging. The 737 was instructed to turn further to the right as the A330 received a collision warning alert. The first officer at the controls of the A330 looked out the right cockpit window, seeing the 737 in close proximity above in a climbing turn, and reduced the aircraft's angle back to reduce the turn towards the other plane. The A330 captain made a radio transmission saying that was very close. Air traffic control instructed the A330 to veer left. At the closest point, the planes came within 152 metres vertically and 796 metres laterally of each other. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau says its ongoing investigation will include air traffic control procedures, controller training and controller actions. And Qantas has responded saying our crew followed directions from air traffic control at all times, adding even if both aircraft stayed on the same flight paths, they were not in danger of colliding. The final report, including any failings, will be out later this year. Lizzie Pearl, 9 News.
Okay, 9 News. Okay, consider yourself fortunate that you did not watch the video that went along with that audio, because the person that came up with all the depictions of what was happening and being described in the audio didn't get it quite right. The video, I don't know if you guys saw the video, shows the A330 taking off and then the 737 coming in the opposite direction from above and down, like directly opposite the A330 taking off. And then it says, when they say about 400 feet from the ground, they went around. They're still way up above the clouds. And they have this little graphic that says 400 feet. And I'm thinking, what? I'm not understanding this. Actually, what happened here is that, and the only mistake that I can see that may have been made by this trainee controller is the fact that he cleared the A330 for takeoff probably too late, or maybe should have had the 330 delay the takeoff and stay off the runway to allow this other Qantas to come in, the 737 to land. So what happened is the A330 is taking off, the 737 is coming in, and it's just, the A330 taking off is not going to be off the runway in time. So the 737 goes around at 400 feet and probably offsets a little bit to the right. Now we have two airplanes, both in the air. One is turning right, the 737, and the departure procedure for the 330 was also kind of a right turn. And the 330 pilot looks out and sees the 737 up there and almost parallel, but they're turning away. And they just gave some vectors to kind of get a little bit more separation. And that's about it. Honestly, not a very exciting or perilous kind of a situation, in my opinion. I've seen this before, and that's why we as pilots have to be very cognizant of what is happening other than what is going on with our own flight. So that's why we listen to the radio and hear people cleared for takeoff, and then we think, okay, if there is not enough separation and I have to go around, what am I going to do with the path of my airplane? How am I going to stay separated from the airplane that's just now lifting off from the runway? And that's what professional pilots do.
I've got a slightly different interpretation of their video. Have you got some more information that I haven't had access to, Jeff? Because
what do you mean?
It looks like the guy getting airborne is in direct opposition to the guy landing. I'm looking at the video here, and I'm
saying that's why it's a good thing that we didn't play the video, because the person that depicted all the things happening in the video is completely wrong.
Oh, okay. So where? I'm confused.
So if you listen to the audio without looking at that video, which will really throw you off. If you watch the video and listen to the audio at the same time, you will understand that the artist's depiction of what happened here is not anything close to what actually happened. The 330 is cleared for takeoff, and the 737 is coming in on the same runway behind it.
I would thought they were coming in on opposing runways.
Because the person who's doing the depiction doesn't understand that
they're
runways
journalists
operate in one direction at a time.
Well, it's common actually for in Australia. I know they do it in Sydney. If the wind's not a problem, they will depart aircraft against the stream, as it were, because that's the quiet end of the runway. It sticks out into the water, and I assumed they were doing exactly the same here at this airport.
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but
No.
I think that just go through and just listen. Don't watch the video. Just listen to their description of what happened. And in my opinion, what happened here was that one airplane was taking off, and in the same direction, they were coming in the same direction. One was taking off the same direction, the other one's coming in. There's not enough spacing. The 330 is still on the runway, and it's got to go around and then offset. The video made it look like he was up at 10,000 feet out over the water coming into the airport, and had to make some kind of evasive action. Although they said that he was at 400 feet. So he would have had to been very, very low out over the water. Anyway, again, I could be wrong, but I think that the artist's rendition of what occurred here doesn't quite match up in my mind to the audio. But anyway.
But the one thing I was going to say, though, was the Qantas quote. I hope that it wasn't accurate, because they said Qantas follow ATC directions at all times. Well, you shouldn't, because if you get a resolution advisory from your traffic collision avoidance system, your TCAS, you are obliged to ignore air traffic directions and do exactly what the TCAS say. So the only time that might not happen is during a parallel approach. But certainly the teachings this side of the world are that if air traffic are trying to resolve a conflict and you get a resolution advisory in the middle of that, you obey the resolution advisory regardless of what air traffic is saying.
Well, and that's true, and that's the same as I think all around the world. However, in this situation, there was no mention of any kind of TCAS advisory.
I thought they mentioned that they had got something. They didn't use the right
they didn't write the
terminology.
word. They didn't use those words, but there was
No.
a advisory issued to one of the aircraft.
Because the air traffic controllers gave them in the
Ah,
box.
okay. I took that as being an RA.
No, I don't think there was
I did
any
also,
RA.
but yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, if anyone out there in Australia knows more, perhaps they can solve
If there's
our
actual
dilemma.
air traffic audio, that would be awesome.
Yeah, if somebody out there knows exactly what went on.
I'm thinking that we're just like not on the same page on this thing, and I think that it was a no, not a big deal.
Yeah, might well have been.
But
who sent it in? Ray Davis?
Ray,
yeah. Typical.
Thanks, Ray, for
And he
doing that.
said it's an incident in Sydney. I thought it was some Brisbane or Melbourne.
No, one of the aircraft coming into land was coming from Brisbane.
Oh, so it actually happened at Sydney?
It happened at Sydney. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, again, a badly titled picture on the video. God, no wonder I'm confused.
I'm telling you,
It was not clear.
Video
It
was a bunch of crap.
Tell us how you really feel about it.
It was not anything close to what I was hearing in the
If it is Sydney, then I do remember there being departures opposing arrivals at times for noise abatement. So that is a possibility. But anyway, Ray, make it clear to us, will you?
And another thing, again, if you don't watch the video, just listen, you never hear that they were coming at each other from opposite directions.
All right.
No, well, they do say that when they were turning, it's on converging paths, but
converging because
they could still be converging because they're turning in
direction.
the same direction. Yes. They drew it turning opposite. I mean, both to the right, but yeah.
That just shows you how that can just completely throw you on. Because when I was first watching that, I'm thinking, why is it showing the airplane up there way up in the air, the clouds below, and it's saying 400 feet above the ground? Something's not right here. And then I thought, let me listen to this again. And I'm thinking, that was completely wrong. Whatever.
Misinterpretation of
what happened.
Sure,
Again,
it was meters, not feet.
It was feet, I think.
They said they gave aircraft separation distances in meters, though.
Yes, they did. But the actual altitude that they gave at 400 feet for the go around. Anyway, Ray, don't send us any more feedback if you don't mind.
And they've got a picture here of the flight deck. It says collision warning alert.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I advise you not to look at the pictures. Wow. Man. Use your ears, not your eyes.
I can't do that. Sorry.
This would like us
in the
to
middle
move
of the
on.
show and you keep talking at me.
I think we need to because. Oh, okay. Anyway, 2, James. Hi, APG crew. First, want to thank you for a wonderful show. I've been a listener from right back at episode 100. You make my commute to London that little bit easier, and I often find myself chuckling along with you guys sometimes with a few odd looks from fellow drivers. I always learn something new when listening. A bit about me. I'm a private pilot with around 150 hours flying experience from the UK. I also teach aviation subjects to air cadets. These are kids from ages 13 to 18, and I get a lot out of giving back after being a former cadet myself. This is what inspired me to catch the flying bug. This coming Friday, I'll be taking a group of cadets to RAF Benson in Oxfordshire to experience a flight in a RAF Grob tutor. Is that right? Grob or Grob?
Grob.
Tutor training aircraft. For many of them, this will be their first experience in a light aircraft. And for me, this is one of the joys of aviation, seeing young aviators take flight for the first time. Nick, you were a cadet, right?
Absolutely, but well before the Grob tutor came in.
Oh.
So I only know it as something akin to a power glider sort of thing. It's something halfway between a light aircraft and a power glider, I think. I'd have to pull it up and take a look at it, but
okay.
It's small and it's got a little clockwork
motor.
engine on the front.
Yeah. Just don't watch the video. In other news, I'm wondering if you have seen this article on the Aviation.
Hang on a minute. I used to do the same thing. I used to teach ground subjects to air cadets. I did that for about 7 years. Not long after I started with Virgin. So I know exactly what he's been doing, and it can be great fun for sure. If you've got a bunch that are listening and are really keen, it can be extremely good fun. But some aren't very keen.
All right. Interesting. All right. Let's see. In other news, I'm wondering if you have seen this article on the Aviation Herald. This aircraft, an A350-1000, was damaged after a hard landing in Tel Aviv, which required the return flight to be canceled. The aircraft is only a month old and was delivered in December to BA, having been delayed due to being damaged in the paint shop at Airbus. Not a lot of luck with this A350-1000.
That was obviously a Friday afternoon airplane.
Is that like every Friday they do that? Oh, okay.
Well, you know what it's like when you get a Friday afternoon car.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to finish it and get home for the weekend. They don't want to mess.
Did you make sure that yours was not a Friday afternoon?
Well,
car?
you tried to.
Yeah. My question to you all: how would you determine that the aircraft requires an inspection after a hard landing? I'm sure
wings fall off.
That's one clue. All the tires have popped.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm sure we've all had a fair share of firm landings. Nah. But at what point would you say, oops, I wonder if I've broken the aircraft? Thank you for your continued excellent coverage, keeping it 50%. And this is, I'm trying to scroll up here. Blue Skies, James Mack, who is one of our new patrons. So thank you, James. Don't most modern airplanes now have like sensors and they give you a report if you exceed certain parameters, Nick?
Oh, for sure. And then the A340 or the A330, it would have started chuntering out a mile of paper as you were taxiing in, which would have been titled Report 15. It may be different on the A350. I don't know what report you get for a heavy landing, but it comes out with screeds of data, G data, rates of descents, there are torsion sensors, and there are more sensors on the airplane. You can shake a stick at, and everyone will be going, oh, here's my little reading, and here's my little reading.
Quick, Bob, take that. Just throw it away.
Sadly, an electronic version will already have whizzed off to main troll. So they will be getting the same thing, and you'll be going, oh, my Lord, exactly right. Now, if you're lucky and it doesn't generate a report 50, now, we had one crew who did a heavy landing, but it was on their second touchdown. So the airplane went, oh, you've touched down, so that's fine, and that was a nice landing. It didn't record or didn't generate a report 15 on the second touchdown because they bounced with this, everything all spoilers to that and crunched it down the second time, which was really quite a severe landing. And a report 15 wasn't generated.
Wow.
So they went, oh, phew, we got away with that. But that was only because the logic of the airplane said, well, you're already on the ground. This can't be a heavy landing now.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue to fly the airplane.
Oh, really? I was going to say,
they continue to fly the airplane. Yeah. And the engineers eventually went, what the hell is this? Like 3 flights ago, this airplane just did the most horrendous landing. And so it is incumbent on the flight crew to also be honest, come clean when you've whacked it in, and write it in the logbook. Because even if the aircraft doesn't generate it, if you write heavy landing or rather firm landing, please check it, or whatever you want to use, then the engineers will go and have a look around, and they will pull the data and they'll work it. Much better that than for it to be discovered a few flights down the road, when you should really put your hand up, because you know what's going to happen then. You're going to be really in the poo. Instead of just being in the poo, now you're really in the poo.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, you don't want that.
So there's no way to get away from it. You just have
Nope.
to fess up and.
No, you should anyway, because
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You don't want to hand the next bloke an airplane with its one wingtip 9 inches lower than the other.
That's not normal.
It might be on the Mad Dog.
Maybe it is on my Mad Dog.
Just look at the elevators on that thing. I mean, they've
All
been
over the
bent.
place.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, they're all over the place. They're flapping
So if I see that on the
around.
wing, I just go, oh, that's normal.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So no, you can't get away with anything in modern airplanes.
All right. Well, good stuff. Anything else to add before we move on to item 3?
No, it's not the first 350 heavy landing I've heard.
I think there was one other. With 1,000, right? The A350
Yeah.
1,000. Yeah.
There must be something different about the way that airplane handles or whatever that it's kind of harder to land.
Well, possibly.
It's different characteristics.
The
perhaps?
340-600, when it came into service, the flight controls did react slightly differently to the other version of the 340-300, which was actually 100 tons lighter. And it took some time for Airbus to acknowledge the fact, and they reconfigured the flight laws so that they behaved better. And after that, we flew the airplane much smoother in certain regimes of flight. And it might be that. It might be just slight teething problems and need a bit of tinkering in the flight laws. But and of course, it's new to service for everybody, so everyone's still getting the hang of it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll get it all worked out and learn how to land it. Trying it on.
Just press the auto land button.
There you go.
Then you can at least blame it on that.
That's probably actually
me.
a good idea. You can watch what the airplane does and go, oh, okay, that's how you do it.
I heard the other day that on average, a modern airline pilot flies the airplane for 7 minutes of flight.
That's so depressing.
7 minutes.
And not surprising.
I've flown with those guys.
And that's on average. So some guys are flying it for like half an hour, and other guys are flying for 30 seconds.
Yeah. There was, at my company, we had a breakdown of the various fleets and what the average time flying. And interestingly, you would think that, it's kind of obvious that, and it's obvious to me, an airplane such as the one I fly would be one of the ones that is flown, hand flown more.
Yeah.
But I don't think we were at the top of the list. I think it was something like the 777 or the 76. And I'm thinking
That's the most hand flown.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, that's odd.
Did they break it down? They just broke it down by fleet type. They didn't break it down by I don't know if they could figure out based on who's flying it, seniority or experience.
So I think you can kind of interpolate and say, wait a minute, the guys and gals that are flying the 777 are the old school people. Yep. They're the senior people, the older people, and they're going to be more likely to fly the airplane.
They're the people that can't work out what all the buttons are.
They don't know how to work the autopilot. So
it has an autopilot. I have no idea how to use it.
And finally, you just look over your young first officer and say, would you do whatever you need to do so I can turn the autopilot on? But I think that really does have a lot to do with, at first I'm thinking, well, it can't be right. And then, okay, now that I'm thinking about it, it seems that the type of, and I think that's what you're kind of getting at, Steph. Because they didn't break it down to the age of the person or how much
just
experience
various seniority on the different aircraft types. Yeah.
So of course it wasn't a surprise that the Airbus fleet, because it's such a much more integrated autoflight kind of operation, autoflight, fly-by-wire, and everything else is designed to really not be hand flown that much. So it wasn't a surprise to see that they were the lowest numbers. But I was still surprised though at how low those numbers were. As you mentioned, Nick, an average of 7 minutes. I'm thinking that's kind of sad, but oh well. I know that Nick was one of those that tended, and I'm sure that you probably were not the rule, but more the exception to hand fly the airplane a little bit more than most people that you flew with.
Yeah, I always just get trifle nervous and wonder about guys who got it airborne, and as the gear was traveling, the autopilot was going in, and I was thinking, really, why are you doing that? This is your chance to fly it close to the
Right.
ground, it's fun, etc.
Yeah.
No, I used to think to myself, I wonder how confident they are of their flying skills.
Mm-hmm. That's something you always wonder about. I mean, my only experience is on the jump seat of the Airbuses and only the narrow body Airbuses 320, 321. And that's exactly my experience. Shortly, maybe not while the gear was actually still coming up, but not long after that, the autopilot was on. And it stayed on the entire flight until just barely, touchdown. It's like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the other thing I used to hate, taking it out at minimums. I'm thinking, well, you've now got 200 feet to
work it
feel
out.
the wind,
Figure out
work
how
out.
it flies today.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Gonna be a real smooth landing.
Nick, there are so many things that the youngsters can learn from us, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're all listening.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. What'd you say, Steph, before we started recording? Boomer.
Oh yeah. Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. Okay, well, speaking of boomers, I think it's time now for the best part of our show, which everyone knows here means that it's time for the Old Pilot's Plain Tale. And this one is RAF Form 414, Volume 6. So take it away.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, RAF Form 414, Volume 6. As you may recall, I left you, lovely listener, in Cyprus, having enjoyed a magical night in a local taverna, and with a slightly sore head, about to commence flying the Phantom on our annual armament practice camp. However, before I could be let loose with a fully armed gun pod, there was the usual local area familiarization flight to accomplish. Tony, who had been assigned as my navigator from the day I arrived on the squadron, climbed into the back seat and we set off to look around Cyprus. It was early in the morning, so the first thing to do was to wake up the Russians in their alligator. I have mentioned the strategic importance of Cyprus to NATO as a base very close to the countries of the Middle East. RAF Akrotiri was only 150 miles from Beirut, and a little further south, but not much further, was Haifa, Tel Aviv, and the Gaza Strip. As a result, there were agencies and missions that I won't mention that operated from the base as well as the visiting RAF squadrons. Monitoring activity on the base was therefore something that the Soviets took an interest in, and we, as a result, took an interest in them. Semi-permanently moored off a buoy to my American cousins, about 20 miles out to sea, was a listening vessel to monitor radio and other transmissions from the base. The Soviets used to change it every few months, sometimes an alligator, sometimes a polnochny, or something similar. Our wake-up calls weren't officially sanctioned, but we all paid regular visits to make sure that the Russian crew were kept entertained. It must have been pretty boring out there, month after month, sitting in the heat, watching the tape recorders capture our inane radio chit-chat. We felt sorry for them and thought that a low pass or two in full reheat might brighten up their dull existence. Then there was a bit of buzzing around the coast, taking a look at the beaches, trying not to get too close to the Princess Mary's Hospital, which was on a tiny peninsula near the airfield. It was a bit of a trick getting close enough to impress the nurses, who were also quartered near our own accommodation on the base, without upsetting the powers that be, and more importantly, the senior matrons, who looked down on us through bifocals and could make the bachelors' lives hell by depriving them of female company. Then it was a quick practice diversion to Larnaca, a civil airport to the east, for, at their request, a low approach and overshoot in full blower and a minor snotting of the tower. Suitably familiarized, it was down to work with the QIP, or Qualified Weapon Instructor Pilot, as he was more formally known, in the back seat as I got my first look at the flag. The first thing I noticed was that all the aircraft now sported a length of nylon string attached to the bottom of the front windshield. Once airborne, we were off to find the Canberra. Eventually, we located him, stooging around in the range, and got ourselves behind. We're doing about 400 knots, and he a mere 180, so we had quite a bit of closure. At around a mile, we tell him to commence, and he would begin a gentle left turn. We'd start a descent and begin to position ourselves for the firing run. With the radar locked to the banner, I'd use my little pinky to move a switch to stiffen the gun sight and keep it in view. I wasn't going to let it do its own thing until a little bit later. We continued to close, a little in lag of the Canberra, so that the angles didn't build up too much, and with the ranges being called off by the quip, the flag started getting closer. It was 6 foot by 30 foot, about 2 meters by 10 meters, so not huge. At the appropriate range, I'd ease the pipper up onto the flag and start tracking the rear. I was trying to make the adjustments small and smooth and not pedal the big Phantom around. This was all about accuracy. The countdown cadence from the back seat continued, and the Hessian banner grew until he called, "Release." I let the gun sight loose, and it started to track up the flag. Ready, fire, break. The fire came at 400 yards, about 370 meters, and with a couple of 100 knots of closure, the brake call, 100 yards closer, came quickly. The brake was a rolling pull, using both rudder and aileron to roll over the top of the flag, followed by a pitch up and a reversal to position for the next pass. I got to pull the trigger, but the gun wasn't loaded. This was, after all, a safety checkout for me to see if I was okay to continue to the next stage. After 15 minutes, the next victim had turned up, so we departed, but not home. Flying hours are never wasted, and the quip was going to give me my annual dual check, so it was time to prove that I could still fly the beast. A lot sweatier, and I'm back on the ground and in the little cine room for the debrief. The film from the Telford gun camera has already been developed, and now I'm being subjected to an ultra-slow-motion replay of each pass of the flag. Now the bit of string on the windshield becomes obvious. I couldn't really see it from the cockpit, but it shows up clearly in the film and shows if I'm trying to yaw the aircraft to keep the pipper on the flag. Apparently, all is well, and although my technique is far from ideal, I'm supposed to be safe to fly with my navigator next time. So the next day, Tony climbs into the back seat, and off we trot. The pattern is becoming familiar now, and the cadence of the calls becoming ingrained. It's like a weird metronome as Tony calls off the ranges, and I interject with the commence call, followed by in dry. Clear dry comes the clearance from the Canberra pilot, who also acts as the range safety officer, and the calls from the back seat recommence. I match them with my position so that when we get to the firing range, I'm about 18 degrees off the banner, a safe angle to ensure that my shells keep well clear of the tow. I'm pulling the trigger, but the magical sound of the Vulcan cannon is still quiet. I'm just shooting photons through the gun sight camera, which will subsequently be dissected by the QYs. It gets a bit like flying holding patterns, and the only exciting bit is the dash back to the airfield for a 100-foot run and break into the circuit. Alpha dispersal isn't far from the threshold, and the troops, sweating away, working on the jets, always get a kick out of a low break. In the cramped cine room, the QYs produce weird gizmos like curved rulers, which they lay up against the screen to measure the range of the banner and the angle off. They compare the actual bore sight point of the gun with the angle off and the range to predict where the rounds would have gone and give a little tut-tut, interspersed with an occasional of approval. Couple of these dry trips, and at last I'm cleared to go live. Now I'm a bit nervous. Never done this before. Fired the gun, that is. Fired anything on the Phantom, come to that. When I sign for the aircraft, there's a section reminding me that I have a live gun, the number of rounds, and the color. The color is important. I won't be the only one to shoot on the flag, so to separate each pilot's score, the tips of the rounds are dipped in a special paint. It's gloopy stuff that doesn't want to dry properly, so that should it go through the Hessian flag, it'll leave a telltale smear of color. Everyone wants red. It marks well. Green and blue are okay, but nobody likes purple. It's easy to mistake purple for a faint red or blue. I get purple. Here I go then. I'm starting the first of 6 attempts to get 2 scores over 15%. Or, well, to be truthful, I've no idea what would happen, but I know the boss wouldn't be pleased. The Canberra taxis past and lines up on the runway. The banner party are waiting with the flag laid out on the tarmac and the cable looped down the runway and then back to where the Canberra lies. While he waits, some guy in shorts climbs underneath his aircraft and clips the cable into the release mechanism. A thumbs up and the aged bomber starts to roll. When the 900-foot cable pulls taut, the banner shoots off down the runway, flapping behind the spreader bar, which supports the flag and has little wheels at each end to run on. As they get airborne, the banner follows and then twists to fly upright, positioned by a weight in one end of the spreader bar. We're second on the flag, so we watch the first Phantom get airborne and then follow him off, entering the range well above the tow height and hold. If the aircraft below us goes US, we must be ready to step in. I dip my wing to watch him. It seems ages as the F4 closes on the banner, and then it twists away at the last moment. I'm waiting for something to happen, but the next time I see it, a long streak of grey smoke from below his aircraft as he gives the banner a good squirt of 20mm. Then, from the quiet of the air above, it's my turn, and I'm cleared to join. I drop like a stone and pull up behind the Canberra. From the back seat, Tony's calm voice is giving me the calls, and I'm trying to follow the cues, but I'm behind the aircraft and slow to get into position. When he calls fire, I throw the pass away, not even close to a decent firing picture. It's the same, and the next, I'm starting to get stage fright, and then there's a click as Tony turns his mic on and gently tells me, "Look, Nick, on the next one, so long as it's safe, just fire. Get it out of your system." I follow his advice, and as he calls release, the pipper starts to move forward. Ready, fire. I squeeze the trigger, and then a howl grows from beneath the Phantom, a kind of low, ghostly moan growing in pitch and volume as the gun speeds up to full firing rate, and then I'm hearing, "Break!" I'm mesmerized, but his shout wakes me up, and I heave up and over the flag and watch it disappear below the right wing. We get some more firing passes in. I don't feel particularly comfortable, but it's too late now. We break into the circuit and taxi back with our canopies open, feeling the warm air dry the sweat from our flying suits. After an interminable wait, everyone has fired, and the Canberra returns to drop the banner. It tumbles from his aircraft like a wounded bird and hits the dirt beside the runway. Heaved into the back of a Land Rover, it's soon being carried into the courtyard at the detachment headquarters and laid out. I'm up in the cine room, and there is plenty of tutting going on. Inconsistent angle off, poor line, and too much deflection, which they hate. Too much back pressure as you fire and you over-deflect, your rounds going ahead of the target. This upsets the Canberra crew and risks cutting the cable. Should this happen, the flag more or less stops in midair, and with over 200 knots of closure, there's a real risk of hitting it. What's more, the guys before will have lost their score as the banner spirals into the sparkling Mediterranean below, never to be seen again. Finally, it's time to grab a Coke and get outside to see the flag. It's neatly laid out, and there's already a crowd there checking out the hits. The banner's a thin rectangle edged in black with a large black spot in the middle. The tail is all ratty from being battered by the airflow, and there are marks and grooves on the heavy metal spreader bar. Not good. This is where ricochets come from. The QI gets his clipboard and starts marking, occasionally getting onto his knees to examine a hole or tear to see if it scores 1 or 2. I'm staring. I can't see any purple at all, but then Tony rests his hand on my shoulder and points a few out. Well done, mate. At least you hit it. My score is finally added up and calculated into a percentage of the rounds fired. 13.6%. Not good, not bad. I'm not a qualifying shoot, but as Tony tells me, okay for a first go. We head back to Block 101 where the fridge is full of beer, and stripping down to shorts, we flop out on ratty old sofas with the cold Keo opened on the fire bell. The rim of the hand-cranked fire bell that adorns every block makes a perfect bottle opener, and it accompanies every fresh beer with a musical ding that I can still hear in my mind. I'm gloomy. I have to fly another dry sortie to bring back better results before I can go live again. A bit glum, but determined to do better. The next day, I'm airborne again, and there are a few smiles from the QIs. I go straight up again with a full gun. I've got red this time. An hour later, and I'm grinning, as I can see my colour on the banner, even as it's being unloaded. Spread out, and the scoring begins. Tony is goading the QI to give a long streak a double hit, but it doesn't matter. 31.8%. I'm in the groove. The next day, it's a 30.8, and I'm qualified. The day after, a 45%, and the boss gives me a slap on the back. Tony's grinning and the beer flows. Ka-ching, ka-ching goes the fire bell. Academic shooting is over. Now we do more operational stuff. First, a tow pattern like before, but with a strict time limit, 6.7%. And then into the full operational shoots. Now we meet the Canberra head-on, and as we pass, it starts a continuous turn for 720 degrees and then calls stop, stop, stop. What we have to do is maneuver around him to get into a firing position. We can shoot until the gun is empty, but no attacking from below, no breaking minimum range or angle off. The Canberra passes, and I heave upwards into a high yo-yo and then drop back down, sliding to the outside of his turn to make some distance, and then try to get into a firing position. It's taken a while, and the angle off is high, but I give it a long burst, 14 hits. The next day, my dander's up, but it's only 3 hits, and the next time, 1. Going downhill fast, but after that, it's 26 hits and then 14 again. I think I've got the hang of it. Before I know it, Tony and I are off the working shift so that the other half of the squadron can have a go. For us, it's 2 weeks to relax in the sun. We grab wheels and head up to rustic little fishing villages like Pisuri or Paphos to eat fresh grilled fish and octopus from tavernas on the beach. Now a tourist mecca, crowded and noisy, but then quiet and traditional. Another day might see us down on Ladies' Mile, a long beach, enjoying the delights of the many activity clubs that prospered there on the RAF base, water skiing, sailing, fishing, or just enjoying a beer on the beach. Then it's up into the mountains to visit the Stavaruni Monastery or a night of culture in the Curium, ancient Greco-Greek amphitheatre, watching plays or listening to music while we sit on the stone steps, drinking chilled pink lady and scoffing rations we pinch from the mess. The golden sun would set in front of us, reflecting off the sea, and we could hear the gentle noise of waves on the beach 100 feet below the cliffs this ancient city was built on. There are drunken parties for the nurses and cocktail parties for the wheels, but all too soon it comes to an end, and still too junior to get to fly an aircraft home, I'm back into the Herc for the long drone to Scotland. As soon as my feet hit the Scottish soil, I'm told to prepare Section 6 of my Form 414 for my very first annual assessment. Obeying Para 3 on presentation of summaries, I craft it in red ink. I total the hours flown for the year, 234, and under assessment of ability, my boss writes, average with potential, remarking, a good first year. I was as pleased as punch.
What a jerk that guy is, huh?
Yeah, I still meet him, you know. We get together. He's there most years at the thinly disguised, the Phantom thinly disguised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
that I can't talk about. That
Yeah.
happens every year in the Lord Moon pub on the Mall in London. And he's a fine chap, but it was my first tour and my first year, so I didn't expect. Right, I was
Excellent.
very pleased to be average. Thank you very much.
Even if you were the best ever, I'm sure that he probably wouldn't have. said that.
Yeah, jumped up little snot. Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
an
Steph.
average.
You were saying something?
Oh, I said, and he noted his potential for future improvements. That's all.
Yeah.
You've got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
But I have to say, I look back on those Cypriot detachments with such fondness. And of course, never could I go back there and even come close to reliving it, because Cyprus has turned into, 18 to 30s, just massive hotels. The towns which were little have now just got lines of hotels all the way down the coast. And all those little tavernas will have been taken over by nightclubs and things. So, I was very lucky to have been there at the time when it was such a special little island.
Yeah, that sounds very nice.
Well, it was very nice. I didn't realize quite how nice, but there you go.
Well, isn't that the case with so many things in life?
That's very true.
All right. Oh, this is disappointing, sad, disappointing news to all of us here at the APG.
Oh, I can't take my hamster on the airplane anymore.
Yeah, well, Jonathan and Sean sent in this. Just saw the U.S. Department of Transportation is proposing a ban on emotional support animals in the cabins of U.S. airplanes.
Woohoo! Oh, sorry. Did I say that?
Oh, dang it. They just opened a 60-day comment.
Snakes, peacox,
No,
horses?
don't think so. Yeah. They just opened a 60-day comment period on a proposal to limit animals in the cabin to only trained. Yep.
I've left my comment.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
I think we all should.
I have nothing to do with this whatsoever, being an Englishman, but I was straight on there.
Well, good.
You never know when you might take a domestic flight here. It might happen.
Good point.
It
Thank
might
you very
affect you.
much.
Yeah, so the limit animals in the cabin to only trained service animals and only dogs. I'm glad to see the DOT is trying to regulate a situation that has become a complete mess. I'm pretty sure the crew agrees. Yeah, I think we all do. But do any of you think there will be unintended consequences? I've included a link where people can comment on the proposed regulations. Perhaps it can be included ITSN in the show notes.
Yes. I guess only for the people who have maybe spent quite a bit of money on their trained miniature horses, which are
Well, they're pigs.
Can't
Little
imagine
pigs.
a lot of people fall in that category.
No, that's the only unintended consequence I don't know.
Yeah. I like Sean. That the first one was Jonathan in Minneapolis, and then Sean says, "About damn time." Although, to be honest, I never thought we'd see this level of sanity return to the skies. Yeah.
Well, wait, there's still a 60-day comment period. They still
I know.
change their mind, take it back.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that the majority of these people who do it are great supporters of it. So, because of course they can travel with their pets whenever they want, it costs them no money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll still continue to try to, if this rule is enacted, they'll still try to figure out how to break or bend the rules.
Become trained service animals, obviously.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with actual trained service animals, right? Only ones that you slap something you bought from Amazon.com on their backs, and to make us believe that they are really service animals, and they're not.
My dogs could never be confused for being trained service animals.
You'd be surprised. I think that yours would behave better than some that I've seen.
Well, that's not good.
So we'll put this in the show notes, ITSN, as Jonathan said, so that you can do as Captain Nick did. And it's a link to regulations.gov. And I'm not going to spit out the actual URL because it's a bunch of letters and numbers and stuff. So it'll be there for you to make your comment and hope that this thing will pass. All right. Fabian, is Fabian still with us in the chat room? I think he's been there for most of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked about the Q400, the LOT Q400 story about the landing gear, and this is the one about the wheelbarrowing, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And so he says, hi, Liz, Jeff, and crew. Attached, you can find my feedback regarding the Q400 LOT lot story. Not sure if it needs adding at the end, but icing speeds for the Q400 for approach are used with temperature below 10 degrees C and visible moisture below acceleration altitude. Always happy landings, Fabian. And so let's hear his recording.
Did someone say my name?
Yep.
Oh, hi, Jeff and crew.
Clever.
Q400 driver Fabian from Germany here. I fly the Q400 for Acme Stadt. And in episode 49, we were talking about the LOT accident in 2018, where the Q400 touched down and landed with the nose gear not extended. And investigations found out the aircraft had landed nose wheel first before. And this was a contributing factor. And you were asking about usual pitch attitudes on the aircraft. So for the flare phase of the aircraft is prone to tail strikes. So for us, it's company procedure to call out pitch, to give pitch call outs during the flare phase. So 50 feet and below. Normal pitch call outs would be 4, 5, and 6 degrees, while those come from the pilot monitoring. While at 6 degrees, the pilot flying should answer with correcting, and if the pilot monitoring doesn't see a correcting action, he should initiate the go around, because at 6 degrees, there's a chance if you hit the runway too hard, you might have a tail strike. But if the pitch increases further, the probability goes up. And I think at the latest, at 7.5 degrees, you will have a tail strike, no matter how smooth your touchdown. So that's one of the pitch factors. But during the approach phase, usually we can approach with either flaps 10, 15, or 35. And with normal speeds, for flaps 10, that would be a pitch during approach between 2 or 3 degrees. For pitch 15, for flaps 15, it would be approximately 1 to 3 degrees pitch. And for flaps 35, the pitch would be somewhere between -1 and 1 degrees. The problem comes in when we have to approach with icing speeds. For icing speeds, we add 15 knots at flaps 35 and 20 knots for the other approach flap settings. This leads, of course, to a even lower approach pitch. For 10 degrees, it would be just slightly above 0. For 15 degrees, it would be somewhere between -1 and 1 degree. And for flaps 35, the approach pitch with icing speeds would be between -3 degrees and -1 degree. So, and since the accident happened in Poland, I would guess, and in Poland and during wintertime, I would guess most of the approaches were flown with icing speeds. So a high probability of the pitch being below 0, but still that shouldn't lead to a nose gear first landing in any case. For us, it's not normal procedures if we fly icing speeds to call out negative pitches too. And if there was a pitch below 1 degree at 10 feet, we would probably initiate a go around, just to be sure to not hit a nose wheel first. I don't know why Delot's colleagues still had as many nose gear landings as they did, but that's all I can tell you about the approach and pitch angles on the Q400. As always, thanks for doing a great show and happy landings.
Thanks, Fabian. Good stuff. I knew we had at least one expert that is flying the Q400. And did we talk about it on the previous show, or was it just something that we were communicating behind the scenes?
We talked about it.
No, we talked about it.
No, I know. I'm talking about what I'm about to say.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I don't know. What are you about to say?
Well,
we can't read your mind, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I know, but you didn't let me finish.
Because we didn't we thought you were talking about. Okay, sorry. We'll start.
Take two. I believe it was something that we were discussing behind the scenes and not on the show, but the Q400, the Q stands for quiet. And I did not know that. And apparently the Q400 is fitted with speakers inside the cabin that it's like active noise cancellation. And if they're tweaked properly by qualified engineers, they kind of diminish the amount of sound that you get from the outside, wind noise and propeller engine noise, etc. And I did not know that the Q in Q400 stood for quiet. Did you?
No, I thought it was that there was another 399 airplanes ahead of them because they were so slow.
Because they were in a queue.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Ba-doom, bam. I wish I had my
I did not know that.
Okay, there you go.
Serious answer.
I'll have to be careful about the way I structure my sentences in the future.
We're far too literal to...
Maybe part of the problem is I still have the audio feedback screen up and you couldn't see my face.
Oh, okay.
Now you can see my lips moving. Sorry. All right, here. We'll put this back up then. Look at me. Yeah, shut up. Okay. Wow.
But it is a very flat attitude.
Batting 1,000 today here.
That
I don't think we're communicating well as a crew today.
There's not good CRM happening right now.
Yeah, CRM is not good today.
Totally out the window.
Okay. So what did you think? That makes a lot of sense, Fabian, regarding the pitch angle, and especially if you're maintaining those higher speeds for icing conditions and you happen to have chosen the flaps 35 setting. You're going to definitely be kind of like an RJ200 coming in for approach. And it definitely is a good practice, I guess, for the pilot monitoring to call out negative pitch when you're getting close to the ground, so you don't get the old wheelbarrow effect thing.
But a little unusual in that you can get a very flat attitude, yet they're very worried about tail strikes as well. So
yeah,
that you're going to have to be a real pilot to do a good job with one of those.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard
Fabian doing flying
a little on the tricky side. Oh,
funny joking, Fabian. Good man. Keep going.
Yeah.
No, I've heard it's definitely tricky to master a very smooth landing on the Q400 from various people.
I would imagine it is, based on what he just told us. Yeah. All right. That's always that's one of the great things about doing the show is we have so many people out there that listen who have various experience levels with various aircraft and such, and it's neat to get the feedback. So thanks for taking the time out, Fabian, for that. And Nick, why don't you take this one here, an extraordinary flying story. And I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name.
Mike Abunela.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lovely bloke. Yeah, he probably doesn't know me or wouldn't remember my name, but I know him because I bumped into him a few times, even though he was on the Boeing fleet and I was on the Airbus fleet. Because
you guys actually talk to each other?
Oh yeah, yeah. Shared a beer or two, I'm sure. The fact is that when Mike, who flew for Virgin Atlantic, when he arrived in London Gatwick on Saturday morning, and this is obviously just a few days ago, January 20th, he'd been flying, and this is from a blog that Virgin Atlantic put out. He's been flying our Boeing 707s for over 30 years and holds the coveted #1 position in the pilot seniority list. We joined Mike on his last trip to Orlando, and why you'd choose to go to Orlando on your last trip, I'm not sure, but he obviously liked the place and discovered more of his incredible story along
It's
the
the
way.
House of the Mouse, Nick.
Right, okay. That's if you like
Come on.
mice, that's the House of the Mice.
The House of the Mouse.
Okay. How he was smuggled out of Iraq in the back of a lorry before returning to the country 22 years later as commander of a historic flight. And now he's probably flown more hours on the 747 than anyone else in history. We don't know that for sure, but at the moment, it's an hours level that is open there for anyone to go, well, I've done more, but we don't think so. It's quite a tale with lots of twists. Anyway, the short story is Mike has finally finished his flying career. He flew his last aircraft, the Boeing 747-400 into Gatwick. He'd been born in Baghdad in 1955, and from a young boy, always interested in flying, he became a pilot in the Iraqi Air Force. But his Air Force ambitions were thwarted. His parents were pacifists, and they didn't want his children or their children to have a military career, so he became an airline pilot. And he flew for Iraqi Airways, 727s, and then on to 747s. And of course, then he was doing his training in Oxford. He had a worrying message from his family telling him not to return. Saddam Hussein had started one of the notorious purges that occurred, and Mike's brothers and 5 cousins had already been arrested. Mike never saw his brother again, very sadly. He made the decision to return to be with his family and resume his career, but after just one flight as punishment, he was grounded and ended up shuffling papers for a railway company. Finally, he escaped the country, and coming to Kuwait, he managed to get a job with a friend, and he then was offered to fly as a pilot for Kuwait Airways. He then moved to the UK and got his license on the 747. Briefly flew for Aer Lingus, and then eventually started this brand new airline in the UK called Virgin Atlantic, and started flying GVMIA, which was our first 747, which I think was a 100 or a 200, one of the really old ones. And he flew with us, forevermore until he's finally retired at the age of 65. So, a marvelous bloke with a fantastic history behind him. He's got a wealth of experience and an enormous number of hours. I'm just trying to whiz through to see what the hours he has on the 747. Can anyone find that? Because it's a long article.
Looking.
I don't. Did they have that in there?
Scanning. I don't think I see it. I did not see a number value that would.
Over 30 years at Virgin.
Yeah. Over 24,500 hours on the aircraft type.
Oh, there you go.
On the 747.
It says, although we can't prove it.
Well, we can't prove he's the most experienced, but that's his hours. So if anyone's got more, let us know. But at the moment, that's the most experienced 747 pilot going. He says on his final PA, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London Gatwick. As you heard earlier, after 31 years of flying for Virgin and 46 years of flying, it's time to say goodbye. That was my last landing and my last flight with Virgin Atlantic. I'm retiring at the age of 65. It was my pleasure to serve my beloved Virgin Atlantic and, of course, the many customers that I've flown over the years. So for one last time, I'd like to thank you for flying Virgin Atlantic and wish you all the very best. Thank you. It's a great story.
Great story.
Mm-hmm.
He overcame quite a bit.
Oh, yes. I skimmed this story. There's an awful lot more to it, which I'm sure Jeff can put in the show notes.
ITSN.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for reading it. All right. We get help from our community members, such as Fabian answering the question that we had regarding the landing approach on the Q400. And sometimes we actually get to help our community members. So it goes the other way. And in this case, I think that it's going to be something that maybe fellow community members might be able to help Philip with. And he says, "Dear APG crew and listeners, hope you're all well. Philip from Switzerland checking in. I recently got a job as a gate check-in agent at Zurich Airport, which I should be starting in April, and which I'm very excited about. However, I also applied for a job as an operations controller assistant at another airline and am now invited to an interview, which will take place in mid-February. The interview is 2 hours long, which leads me to believe that there will be some sort of assessment and possibly some tasks to solve. Now, I need some help from the APG community. I already posted on Slack for advice, but I have no idea what to expect from this interview and was wondering if there are any community members who work in operations and have an idea what specific questions or tasks might be asked for. If there is anybody who can give me and would like to give me some advice, please message me on Slack. He's Philip from CH, or Twitter. He's at aviator_Phil, PHIL. And that's going to be ITSN. Thanks so much and all the best, Philip. He said, this is not a request for general interview tips, but a 2-hour-long interview makes me believe they will ask more ops-oriented questions, possibly tasks to do. So if anybody has any insight, that would be fantastic. So, you know what, Philip? I know the APG community, and I know they're not going to let you down. So please contact Philip on Slack or Twitter. And again, the information's there in the show notes for you to do that. All right.
I wonder if we've got anyone in the list amongst our listenership who actually conducts those interviews. Now that would be kind of cool.
I wouldn't think it to be out of the realm of possibility, because we are the APG after all, wide-reaching and all-knowing.
That's right. We're even on ACAR screens.
This is true.
Yeah, and they named an airport after us up in Maryland. So,
see?
Yeah. We got a lot of pull out there.
Very influential.
The actress to the bishop.
All right. Item 7. Captain Steve. This is an incident involving American Airlines. Let's see. Liz, should we do this? Because this is a little bit of a long video, and perhaps maybe our 20 minutes that we have left in the show might be better spent at trying to knock out some others.
Or can you cue it up to he says it's the part at 6 minutes, 58 seconds.
Well, you kind of got, no.
You have to listen to some of it before that.
Yeah. It wouldn't make any sense at all if you started right at 6:58.
This is ITSN.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Liz?
She said ITSN.
Oh, okay. Where did she say that?
In our group chat.
Oh, okay. I didn't see anything there. I just see 30 minutes to 3 hours. That's all I see.
2 more messages down.
3. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm not getting the messages on my... Okay, now I get it.
You've
I finally got
out of the group chat. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm the host and the main host, and I'm not getting anything. Okay. She said she just put it in there. Okay. Well, how is it that everybody else got it before I did? That's weird. Okay. Yeah.
Takes longer for messages to arrive at the home office
way over
Studio
here
1A. Yeah.
Okay. But I'm not really sure exactly what she means by that. But
just sum it up and leave it in the show notes.
No, I want everybody to listen to the audio.
Okay. Well, so let's push it off.
Let's save that for the next show. So I should have just done that and not wasted everybody's time. Okay, 8, Sean. Not sure what to think on this one. No one's flying to Hawaii in 3 and 4 engine aircraft anymore, but at the same time, ETOPS isn't something you want to get wrong. Having gone through ETOPS process recently with the FAA, the process is indeed lengthy, onerous, and seemingly mindless, but I'd rather have that than dropping aircraft into the ocean. What is he talking about? Well, it is this story that from Wall Street Journal, FAA lowered bar for Southwest Airlines approvals a complaint alleges. So there's a whistleblower that says regulators sped approval of Hawaii flights for the financial benefit of the airline. U.S. air safety regulators likely acted improperly in the way they authorized Southwest Airlines Company to begin flights from California to Hawaii last year, according to the main government agency that handles federal whistleblower complaints. The preliminary conclusion by the Office of Special Counsel pertains to a Federal Aviation Administration employee's allegations that agency manners it was a whistleblower from the FAA. Agency managers gave the carrier preferential treatment by rushing the approval process and cutting corners in other ways. Council's staff found a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing by FAA employees, according to one document, among several documents and emails between staff and the whistleblower reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. The inquiry hasn't been made public until now. All right. So there's more to this article here. And so I don't know what kind of proof they have to back all of this up, but if it's true, that's not a good thing
No, you don't want to be rushing things that are in the interest of safety, certainly.
Right.
My only other thoughts are that there are other airlines that are flying similar aircraft the same distance from California or the west coast of the U.S. to Hawaii. And so you would think that the regulations in order to do so in terms of certifying those aircraft would be in place, and it would be a relatively straightforward process to meet those guidelines. They should be relatively cut and dry, but
you
it's
would think
my area
so?
of expertise. So
Maybe it has more to do not necessarily with the airplanes
training.
themselves, but yeah, like the company's policies and procedures,
SOPs
perhaps.
and things like that. Mhm.
Yeah, each airline that applies for ETOPS has to have both an engineering and an operations inspection to ensure that the correct training is done. They usually have to earn ETOPS through periods of proving that they can operate up to the maintenance and serviceability standard for ETOPS flights, and then slowly, having gained experience, their ETOPS clearances are they grow so that they can go further distances between diversions. And I guess they're suggesting that Southwest might have found a way to short circuit the system. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like.
People have, for a long time, kind of accused them kind of having a very cozy relationship with the FAA. And that's one of the things that is kind of not such a great thing with the FAA, because they kind of have a dual mission to promote aviation and to regulate aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that line gets a little bit blurred. And the last thing I have to say is that this shows you what delivering tens of pizzas to FAA people will do for you. No, I'm just kidding. There's an old joke that we think that Southwest gets special treatment because they send like just dozens of pizzas up to the ATC control tower.
They get all the shortcuts and
sure
can taxi faster than everyone else because of that. Yeah.
It's kind of a meme, I think, more than anything else. It's probably not really true, but it's kind of fun to say. Yeah, they must have sent them some more pizzas. So that's just a joke, by the way. So yeah, I don't know. We'll probably hear if that is actually after the investigation is complete, if they are, or maybe it has been completed. Did they get fined at all? Or
I don't know. This was just about the whistleblower complaint.
Okay,
I think.
So I'm sure we'll hear something if something comes of this. And thank you, Sean, for that. And again, ITSN, if you want to read the entire article from the Wall Street Journal. This is
can't wait for this one.
So, Dave, we were talking pronunciation. What did it have something to do with kind of relaying our stories of?
You were. There was a story where there were some English town names, and you were reading them and asking Nick if that was correct, like after each one.
I probably shouldn't anymore, but I figured that he would know. I always now I know that it's not the correct answer. Anyway, Dave writes in how to pronounce English town names for Jeff. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. I love you too. And
I think you should have a go at these before we listen to the instructions.
He gave me a link to this video where this very nice young lady kind of goes over, the meanings and pronunciations of these town names or city names, village names, whatever. So I just wrote down a few of the ones that she had mentioned, and then I finally got to the point where I didn't.
So it's you misspelled them. Ah, right. Okay.
No, it's exactly. Did you watch the? I'll ask again. Did you watch the video?
Why would I watch the video? I live here.
See that I copied word for word, letter per letter.
There's no H in Worcestershire.
Well, then you're going
See,
to.
I don't even see
You're gonna have to write
Worcestershire
in
listed on the written. Am I seeing like a different note than you get?
You're making it up. Anyway, do carry on. Start at the top and work it down.
I was probably in the middle of writing all these things down when you probably set up the tab to begin with.
Oh, you think? Okay.
If you refresh it. And I'm talking to stuff.
It should be, yeah, that's current, I think. Let me double check.
Anyway, so I wrote down some of these names, not all of them, because I didn't. It's quite a long video, and then she has several whiteboards with all these things drawn on the whiteboard. We'll start off with Birmingham, Nottingham, Tottenham, Durham, Wrexham, and West Ham. Now, one of those actually,
hang on a minute. I just can't.
Does Nick need a buzzer? Like,
oh, wait, hang on. Before you go, I'm going to let you talk. One of those I pronounced correctly, English properly.
Which one?
And the rest were American.
The last pronounce West Ham.
Yeah, that's all right. There's two separate words.
I know, but
you cut out a little bit there in the center. How did you pronounce the town name that's also in North Carolina?
Durham.
No, that's not how we say it.
Let me. I was just pulling everybody.
Okay.
Birmingham, Nottingham, Tottenham, Tottenham.
You see, it's classic to put for you guys to put the emphasis on the back end of the word, not the front.
Yeah,
we tail off at the back end, so we don't have any emphasis on the.
You put the emphasis.
I just peter out at the end.
Birmingham, Nottingham, Tottenham, and what's the one after Tottenham?
Durham. Okay, Wrexham. And then West Ham, according to Jade, the lady on the video.
I think she's very good.
Then the next set are the Breeze or Buries, the Canterbury, Shrewsbury, Glastonbury.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Ipswich, Norwich.
Yeah, very good.
Plymouth, Yarmouth.
Bournemouth.
Yep. And Yarmouth.
Yep.
Let's see, Leicester, and according to Jade on the video.
Hello, what's going on? Am I the only one left?
I don't know. It was like,
did Jeff just fade away and?
It might have done to him what it did to me. All of a sudden, I was here listening to you guys, and then it was like, poof, everything disappeared.
He was just about to say Worcester.
So there is Worcester, Massachusetts.
Well, he's written it with an H in it. But where's he
yeah,
gone?
he did Worcester.
And Sirens.
I don't know. He'll come back at some
point. You reckon? All right.
Yeah, but we'll just stay here for a few minutes until we hear otherwise from him.
When you both disappeared, of course, I automatically assumed it was me. But do you think you should close the wrong window again?
No, I didn't. I had touched nothing.
No,
when it did it to me.
okay.
Oh, he might have. I don't know. But to me, it just kicked. It just the screen refreshed and it was gone. So.
Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the APG.
It said your internet signal may be poor, and I looked at my internet signal and it was perfectly fine, and everything else was working. So I just rejoined.
Right. Okay.
I don't know.
Hi, Jeff.
Come back. There he is.
And there you have it. Got them all right.
Very good. 100%.
Went through all 100 names. I hope that you got me saying them all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened. It just dropped on me here.
Yeah, it did the same thing to me.
Oh, okay. It must be then, I'm guessing StreamYard, because I think I didn't lose a signal here. So
I stayed. I remained there working all the time, so I don't think it was StreamYard. Just the American half of the world.
It was just the internet in the US.
Southern US.
Yeah, it's the entire of the US. You had a quick gray out.
Okay, whatever.
It's like that movie Yesterday, and all of a sudden the Beatles have never existed. Right?
Yeah.
All
right.
my troubles seem so far away.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So again, I'm just kind of mimicking what the beautiful Miss Jade said in her wonderful video. She spelled this word Worchester. I know there's an H there that's not supposed to be, but that's the way she spelled it. And she said it was pronounced Worcester or Worcester. And
yes, it is, but there's no H in there.
Okay. And then I'll get you her email and you can correct her.
No.
Let's see. And then I'm going to say this one is a little bit harder. I think it's like Cirencester.
That's very good.
Something like that.
Cirencester.
Okay.
I think we'll give you at least 90%. That's well above the
it's only
show
because
average.
that's only because I watched Jade in her presentation, and let's let everybody hear just a little bit of how nice this young lady is, even though she's sometimes wrong. Let's see. I'll start from the very beginning, and here we go.
Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to learn the pronunciation of towns and cities in England, but we're going to focus on the suffixes of those towns and cities. Originally, hundreds of years ago, these suffixes on the end of a place name would have meant something. And if we know that suffix, we can understand what that town or city
kind of get the
was
idea
back then,
how she's setting this whole thing up. She has a whiteboard behind her with all these names. I'm going to see if I can find the one that we're having some issues with.
So now, so Nick knows quite a few of these towns
or hedges
also exist in the United States and are pronounced very similarly.
Just
Mhm.
similar to sister.
Like Worcester, right?
And
I suppose
Durham.
that's because they don't
And
want to
Durham,
say the
yep,
big
in North
word
Carolina.
every
Mhm.
time they mention the name.
Where's Norwich? Is that in?
Oh, isn't there?
I've heard everybody. I've heard people mostly
Maybe.
pronounce it Norwich,
Sorry,
Connecticut, right?
Ipswich. Yeah.
Next, we have the suffix field.
Okay, wait. I'm going to back her up here to this
means
one that we have a bone of contention
Cirencester?
with.
I don't know, but
Yeah, here we go.
We say Cirencester, and also, even if you know how to read IPA,
I know how to drink them.
comes out as quite a long word.
Oh, she's still talking about that
which
one.
means like castle and means like fort in English. We have Leicester. When we look at that word, the first
We got
guess
what?
would
Looks like
be
Leicester.
Leicester, something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
Leicester.
But actually, it's only 2 syllables, and we simply say Leicester.
There's a Leicester,
So it's
North
much
Carolina.
easier to pronounce.
Is there? Is it spelled
than
like that?
it is to spell that word.
Huh.
Next, we
Do
have
they pronounce it that way?
Yep.
Wow.
Worcester.
It's right near Asheville.
Worcester.
Oh.
And there's a famous sauce from this place. We call it Worcester sauce. Worcester sauce. Or some people say Worcestershire sauce. 2 ways to pronounce that sauce. Next, we have
I guess.
probably the
That's it.
hardest one.
Anyway, you know what? It could be that she just misspelled it on her board.
Probably.
Quite possibly. Anyway, well, what I should say is, Dave, thank you very much for that. That was really actually, I'm not being facetious. That was really interesting. It did help me with the pronunciation of a lot of these towns and villages and cities and such. And I've only gotten through about 2/3 of it, so I still have homework. I need to watch the rest of it.
The only annoying thing is that we get a lot of fun out of listening to you try to pronounce these things.
I know.
And
You want me to
likewise.
mispronounce it, right? Shall I go back?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. All right.
And then look kind of confused.
Well, that's easy for me. Huh? All right. Gosh, just about 6 minutes left as far as I can tell. Is that close, Liz? I know we had a little hiccup there with my and Steph's connections. Is there anyone that we just have to do before we cover the next show? I'm thinking maybe we'll do number 10. Scott, Here, let me read her private chat. Okay. This one is from Scott, and he said, "Hi guys, love the show. Solid info wrapped in good humor. On APG 407, flying into Columbus, Ohio was discussed. So I checked out the layout on Google Maps and noticed not one plane at the gates. I saw this phenomenon at Toronto's Pearson International Airport as well. All empty gates at a very sizable airport. Maybe 3 planes, possibly mid-morning. Images attached. I know there are slow times at the airport with lots of spare seats at the Chick-fil-A, but these total vacancies seem uncanny. What's your experience? Clear skies and empty tarmacs." So he has a couple of photos that he's included here, and yeah, does look a little strange. All these gates at all these different terminals, both at Toronto's Pearson and Columbus, John Glenn, Columbus, Ohio. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's a possibility that when they snapped the photo that there actually weren't any airplanes at the gates, or do you
I think
that,
it's unlikely.
yeah. Although, I was thinking the same thing, Steph, but if you look at the Toronto Pearson one on top, if you really zoom it in, you'll see like on the right-hand
shadows of
side,
aircraft.
No, there are on the right-hand side, there are actually some airplanes parked at that terminal that would be on the southeast side.
Oh yeah. There's a bunch of little commuter jets,
and then there's
I see that.
a little bit almost in the center of the photo, some more regional jets that size airplane.
Yeah, on that gray smack of tarmac.
Yeah.
So perhaps so. I just pulled up Charlotte Douglas because I don't think I've ever seen anything quite that empty there. It's usually chock full of airplanes parked at gates, and usually some aircraft waiting for gates. And the Google Earth map has all kinds of aircraft parked there.
Well, you see, I think there is a possibility they've had to remove some airplanes, because if you look at the one of Toronto, there's a shadow right in the middle, the bottom of the picture, where the Millennium Falcon has landed.
Oh, yeah,
now, obviously, they're a bit worried about people, all the Star Wars fans coming down and mobbing the place. So they obviously brushed that out, but they didn't get rid of the shadow.
They need to find somebody better at Photoshop than this.
Yeah, exactly right. They do. So I think they probably had to remove some airplanes as well, just to make sure that it looked normal.
Oh, actually, you know what? I pulled up. Nope, there's still plenty.
You
of
have to go to the
aircraft
show notes to see that picture, but it's definitely the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, I agree. Or even almost like the front half of the Enterprise. The Star Trek.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could have been a bit of the Enterprise. Yeah, missing an engine pod, but
yeah. I don't know. We don't know what the answer is, Scott. I have seen the Atlanta airport with many gates unoccupied, but to see like all of the concourses and 0 airplanes, that would be very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah, so sounds like
I was looking at the Apple Maps satellite imagery for the first time around. Now I'm looking at Google Maps of Charlotte, and like the entire e-concourse, except for one plane, is empty, which I can almost guarantee you that that's never the case. And then some of the other concourses are like one of them only has 2 planes in it. Just seems odd. I don't know.
There are times though, the way they bank the flights, they do have like busy times and not so busy times. Yeah, I don't know. Does look suspicious to me. All right. Do we have time? No, we don't have time for Greg's audio feedback. Sorry, Greg. Regarding lithium batteries, we'll have to move that one to the next show. Maybe quickly, our fitness expert Steph can help us with this one, number 12. Joel via Facebook chat room. Actually, last show, actually, he asked this question. Could you guys expound upon some good tips for staying fit, food and exercise, with rapidly changing schedules and routines between home and trips? I want to get back into shape, and I just wonder how you guys handle that. My answer is easy. I don't do any of that.
Yeah, there's only one of us that does.
Yes, and then Steph is going to answer you.
Yes. So it's really just about planning in advance. knowing what your trip is going to be. So even though I don't work in this industry, I still travel quite a bit in hot time zones sometimes, and sometimes in very short order. London earlier this month was an example of that. But you just, for me, sleep is the biggest key to this, because if I haven't gotten enough sleep, it's very hard to build in the time to also go to the gym and figure out how to eat healthy as well. So in advance of going on the trip, I'll figure out what my sleep strategy is going to be when I'm going to try and figure out how to get enough sleep time in. And as long as I can keep my sleep schedule pretty well, then I can usually build in the time to make it to like the hotel gym or figure out when I'm going to go for a run. If I'm traveling with other people, I'll try and build it in with the folks I'm traveling with, if they're interested in going to the gym or running or working out in some capacity. Eating can be tricky if you're, in the airport a lot or on the road a lot. It can get difficult, but there's always, in this day and age, there's good options, or at least better options. You don't always have to have the burger, fries, and Coke. You can have a sandwich somewhere or a smoothie or something a little bit healthier. So Jeff's
I
like,
can tell
I
you what,
only eat burgers, fries, and Coke.
I do
That's my
fly.
entire diet.
I do fly with younger, more athletically fit, physically fit people. And what they tend to do is, we arrive, if we're kind of the flying, the kind of trips that I fly, where you get in the like mid afternoon, or even sometimes during the middle of the day, or maybe even later in the afternoon. They'll, we'll usually try to set up a time to meet for dinner, and a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm going to try to get a quick workout in. And I'll say, I'll start off with something like, let's, meet at 5, and it's okay if we make it 6, because I want to get a workout in. So a lot of the guys that I fly with, again, the younger people, will find the gym in the hotel and get some kind of a workout. Also, as regarding the food thing, a lot of them also carry their own food with them, healthy food, and like little bag.
You can do, there's a lot of good options for that. They even make little portable, they look like insulated container, but it'll have a heating element on the bottom of it. So you just plug it in and you can heat all kinds of things in there. And they're travel size. I'm not as good at preparing meals that way. That's kind of one of my shortcomings. So I really just try and look for options that are healthier, as opposed to some of the less healthy food options.
Preparation is a big, a key, key to success with that, because I never think about any of this stuff until I'm on my trip and go, oh, that's a good idea.
I'm not even good at it on a day-to-day basis. I can have like healthy leftovers ready to go and just leave it in the refrigerator.
Go for the hamburger and French fries.
I just forget it first thing in the morning. Not good. So that's an area for me to work on. But yeah, there's lots of ways to get around it, and most of it comes down to planning and preparation, as Jeff was saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, hope that helped, Joel, and to everyone else out there we didn't get to. We'll definitely move all that over to the 411 show folder, and we'll cover it next time. So if you're new to the show and you want to learn more about the crew and the community and merchandise and the coffee fund, and learn more information about the Plain Tales, don't worry, Nick, I'll get on that. And
thanks. Yeah, I need some more.
Yeah. And so much more. Oh, and probably one of the most important things on there is the APG community calendar. You can also see what we're doing out there, and if we have any meetups planned and that sort of thing. So, and when we're going to record the next show, when we know. So check that out at airlinepilotguy.com. And let's see, I guess we're on the social medias, and Steph can tell us about that.
We are indeed. You can head over to twitter.com, use the handle @APGcrew. We're all there. You can find our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of that page. You can also head over to facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Good community interaction going on there. Lots of folks sharing recent news and other aviation related stories. And for more ways on joining our community, I'll let Hillel tell you about Slack.
All right. Let's see. Hillel. Time. All right. He's in the shower. I'm not sure he can hear me. Hang on.
Hello. Time. Get out of the shower, man.
You know, I don't know why he always takes a shower right toward the end of the show like this.
This timing is uncanny.
It is. It really is. All right. And here he is. I'm going to move out of the way, and he's going to tell you about Slack.
I think it's the tension makes him
Please
sweaty.
join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you so much, Hillel, for doing that for us, managing the Slack team. And Hillel, come on, man.
Can you get me a roll of toilet paper?
Okay, after the show. All right, sorry about that, folks. And until next time, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited tailwinds, and is that right? No, unlimited visibility and tailwinds.
I'd like unlimited tailwinds.
Yes, yes.
Until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
It's about time you got here, Landon.
Go Chiefs. No, I don't know. Sorry.
That's just rude.
What?
Is he a Chiefs fan?
No, I was saying for me. I was just trying to get my. I'm probably going to take some heat for that because there's plenty of.
Say it again.
Go Chiefs.
Didn't sound very enthusiastic to me.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Go Chiefs.
That's because that's about how enthusiastic I am for this Super Bowl. I just hope it's a good game. Anyway.
Yeah, the Panthers aren't there. The Falcons aren't there.
No, Bears aren't there.
The Patriots aren't there.
No. What are we gonna do? Hopefully that halftime show.
Go to bed.
Just watch something else.
Yes.
Yeah. Go to bed early. Yeah.
No, Landon is a 49ers fan, which makes
another
sense.
one in the bag or in the can or whatever you call it.
In the can.
I'm terrified of saying can with Hillel around.
Yes, I'd be careful with that one.
We need to get some more sound clips. We'll have to come up with some more fun things for him to say.
Hey, Jeff, is this in the can yet?
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us again. Hope you enjoyed our hijinks. Is that a word that anybody uses anymore? Probably not.
Yes.
Okay, Boomer. Sorry.
Mean. You're so mean, Steph. Oh, man. Okay. Well, it's getting very late for Nick, so we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast and just look on the community calendar for the next show for next week. And until then, we love you.
Adios.
Well, they do. I don't.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
Well, no, we don't love Nick either. It's okay. I'm just kidding.